that they endeavor. Give them the wisdom and the guidance so that they can serve you and serve the people of this fine community. And we ask all those that are here tonight for a variety of reasons that peace be upon them, that wisdom and a calmness, and be assured that we're all working together for a community that we can share good times, good health, and happiness for all the days to come. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus the Christ. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deacon.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Foley? Councilman Grubbs? Councilman Bastian?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Here.
Mayor Burnett?
Here. We have a functional quorum, 3 of the 5 of us here. At this time, I would like a motion to move item 14 to follow item 13. I would like the storm update to...
Item 4, not 14.
I'm sorry, item 4 to
Item
follow item 13 so that we have, first of all, so we can have citizen participation immediately follow that.
Yeah.
And then also so that, the children that are here for the proclamation, we can get them out of
Sure.
here so they're not waiting around. And that'll also free up some space because I think we're going to need it. So may I have that motion?
I'll make that motion to adjust the agenda as you stated.
Second.
Have a motion, proper second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With that, Florida City Government Week proclamation. Mr. Springer around? Where's Mike? He's buried. That's okay. We can get to him later. Whereas city government is the government closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents, and whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities, and whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public service and benefits, and whereas Florida City Government Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives. And whereas the Florida League of Cities and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information, and our city wants to use this week to emphasize the importance of volunteering and giving back, because volunteering strengthens communities, solves problems, and improves lives. Now therefore, I, Donald M. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, recognize the week of October 21st through the 27th as Florida City Government Week, and with my signature and the seal of the city, it is so declared on this day and in this place. Now the one I really want to get to, the Red Ribbon Week proclamation for the Volusia Young Marines. I know a lot of y'all are kind of tucked in and around the back. Could the Volusia Young Marines come on up here to the front, please? And appreciate y'all being here and your service. And afterwards, that might leave a little bit more room for everybody else too. I'm going to read the proclamation and then I'm going to come down to present it to you. Whereas communities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them. And whereas there is hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education and drug demand reduction, coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as the Young Marines of the Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in an effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities. And whereas the red ribbon has been chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kike Caminera, a Drug Enforcement Administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty, and represents the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug-free prevention and reduction efforts. Whereas October 23rd to 31st has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, in which encourages Americans to wear a red ribbon to show their support for a drug-free environment. So therefore, I, Donald M. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange proclaim October 23rd to the 31st as Red Ribbon Week in the city of Port Orange, and I urge all of our citizens to join me in a special observance, and I thank these young men here for their dedication
Men and
to our
women.
community.
Men and women.
Young men and women. Thank you.
And there's Mike to get the picture.
How is it you're shaking hands better than most of these guys down here?
Because she's a woman.
Good. All right, help me hold this up and everybody face this way. There you go.
Get in there, picture.
Yeah, your hand.
Yeah, come
Pop,
on, come on.
pop out in front of them.
Let me do this. This is
There
all
we
it
go.
is.
Good stuff. Oh, one more, Mayor. Couple more back here.
You get to hold that. And what I've learned is the person with the firmest handshake gets to walk away with the proclamation. Absolutely. Absolutely. Feel free to. Where's mine? All right. You got 3 people, right? I got.
Here you go.
More people.
Thank you.
We proclaimed it Red Ribbon Week. Let's get the red ribbons out there.
Very cool.
Well, let me just say one last time. I read it in the proclamation, but from the heart of the community. You kids want to grow up making a difference and make lives better, not just for yourselves, for other people. And there really is no higher calling. And I appreciate that. Mix a little fun into your day while you're at it, but go out and make a difference. And I appreciate it. The proclamation is declared. Thank you.
Well done.
Good stuff.
Item 7, anything on the consent agenda, items 9 through 12 that anybody would like to comment on? Public comments on consent agenda items only. There being none, item 8, agenda approval with the change already motioned and approved. Can maybe the agenda for the rest of the evening be motioned and approved?
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have items 9 through 12 on consent. We have a motion for approval.
So moved.
I'll second.
Well, you know, if I don't get a motion and a second from you two guys, I'm in trouble because it ain't happening. Call the roll.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 3-0. Item 13 is tomorrow needs your responders. Tomorrow needs your first responders Volusia County presentation of awards.
And where is he? They're here.
Jordan is hidden somewhere. When our chiefs, there we go.
Chief Wolfing.
Jordan, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Councilman. We just wanted to come and do appreciation for all of our city's first responders. We hosted our third annual 22-mile walk September 21st of this year. It was a great success. We had over 140 people come out, start walking with us. One of them being our next mayor, Mr. Stiltner, and Mr. Tracy Grubbs walked the entire 22 miles with us. So it's a great success. We do this organization to be able to help for mental health counseling for first responders. Just this year alone, we put 19 Volusia County first responders in counseling or programs just to be able to make them better day in day. So we got some awards for those guys. We just wanted to hand them out real quick.
Okay.
So we have from the fire department, we have the Port Orange Fire Department, and the Chief Wolfing is going to accept that plaque.
This is the part where everybody claps. There we go.
From the police department, we have Chief Marino going to accept that plaque. And then we have some of the firefighters here, and then the police officers were kind of busy, they couldn't make it, but we have driver engineer Dustin Hilton. We have firefighter Scott Hahn. And we have firefighter Kim Barnes. I'll read off these names real quick. They're not here, but we have Sergeant Dean Gaver. We have Officer Carl Hamsch, Officer Trevor Meany, Officer Jesse Pearson, Officer Michael Gray, Officer Jesse Pearson, and that's it. And those guys stood out with us for the entire 22 miles, about 9 hours the entire day, making sure that everyone was safe, everyone completed it, and no issues or anything like that. So
Excellent.
we want to say thank you to those guys.
Jordan,
Thank you.
that
Well done,
requires
Jordan.
a lot of sunblock, my friend. I appreciate what you did.
And Jordan.
Yes, sir.
Jordan, since we got you there in the interest of time and flow, because I had you in my comments tonight.
Yes, sir.
To a special thank you to Jordan. For those that don't know, Jordan is one of our newest hires in our police department. He is a military veteran, and he is a huge advocate in the community for volunteerism and truly a shining star. It is not very often that a supervisor within the organization of the city reaches out directly to the city council because they're so moved by someone's selflessness. And that occurred, I don't know if you're aware of that, but one of the sergeants from the police department reached out and wanted to make sure that the elected body of the city was very much aware of how, in the aftermath of this storm, you immediately started giving of yourself in ways that most people can't even fathom. And Jordan not only used personal vehicles that were able to combat high water levels to help get people out and rescued that needed to be done, but he also went to work on creating food drives to feed almost 1,300 people with the assistance of local churches. So I just want to say thank you. Our community thanks you, and well done. Well
Yes, sir.
done.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
You can get that picture.
Yes, sir.
You want to come get a picture with us? You do the walk.
I am going to call you for a haircut again soon.
Yeah, Don, you're getting a little long there.
I'm getting a little scruffy.
Okay.
Well done. Okay. That brings us to item 4. Mr. City Manager, you give us our storm update?
Yes, sir. Robin's going to set up the PowerPoint. Basically, it's a two-part presentation. The first part of the presentation focuses on the storm itself, some background information on the storm, and then the second part of the presentation is a description and overview of the stormwater system here in Port Orange, So it's a background of what we have and how we handle stormwater here. So beginning with the storm itself, some of the data that was here. One of the things, we got more rain in Ian, but it was over a longer period of time. One of the things sort of unique about this storm is that we had a really heavy period of rain about 2:45 or 3 a.m. to about 5. I had a couple of calls from people who made point that we were kind of holding our own in a lot of areas until about 2:30, and then when we got this big burst of rain, and our weather stations were showing at some places we had about 9 inches in an hour totals, but it was in a 15-minute increment. So we were estimating in that peak hour we had about 5 inches. So at that same time, when we were looking at trying to find out what the storm surge was, so we're looking at where there's river gauges that show you how high the water levels are, and we were able to find that the water levels were about 5 feet above normal at about the same time this was going on. So what made this storm a little different than Ian is that it was a concentration at one period of time with a storm surge. And when I go through the background of our stormwater system, you'll see the gravity, or it's gravity fed and comes out, and tidal surges block off the exit. So it's like corked up the stormwater system when all this rain happened. And I just happened to notice on the news that one of the days after that we were the highest level of rain. As they did that, they went through every county in their viewing area, and I think the Port Orange number was the highest in the entire Orlando market viewing area for this storm, which is not a good thing to be number one in. It was a lot of rain, not as much as Ian, but it was a lot of rain, and the impacts were fairly similar to that storm. The wind gusts weren't really as much. I mean, we had trees and stuff, but we wasn't one of those heavy wind storms. We have a decent amount of damage. So the summary of the damage assessment that's been done. So if you see this, there's about 1,300 homes that were estimated to be impacted. Basically, this number is about 600 of them that we estimated to be flooded in this storm. A little bit different than in Ian. We had about 1,800 homes impacted and a little over 1,000 flooded. So it's in the same magnitude, but not nearly as bad. Maybe a third less than what we saw from that. We analyzed also our public property. We had some roofs leak. We had some water impacts. The wastewater treatment plant flooded again. And we had a lot of parks damaged, including a lot of trees down on the golf course as well. Other notable things, and people can read these, the Moody Bridge flooded again, very unusual the first time that happened, but that also, we had enough water in the creek that it got up over that. The Dunlot and Spruce Creek intersection flooded. It also had the FPL substation in that area flooded, which caused loss of power in that area. We had about the same number of high water rescues as we had for Ian. The Cambridge, and I'll go into that more detail later too, but the Cambridge facility has a temporary fix. The berm that was in there got breached. The berm didn't fail, the wall failed in Nicole, and it actually went in. But in this storm, the berm held, the super sack bags that are in there held. The water just got up over the top by about 3 feet. So our pump ran the whole storm, but when the pump was running, we were pumping out into the tidal marsh, and it was just coming back in. The surge was pushing it back in. So the pump was working. We just don't have a high enough wall to keep the water out. So in addition to that, we lost a couple other pumps. Virginia Monroe is over on the east side. That pump doesn't have a generator on it, and when the power went out, the pump quit working, so we lost that area later in the storm. And the Sweetwater Hills pump failed. There were a couple residents that noted it started smoking, and when it shut down and quit working, the water came back up into that area. So that's an assessment of what we saw as damage. I'd put this on here about the FEMA flood insurance program. That's not really a popular thing, but if you remember what happened in Lee County, if you don't follow the rules of substantial damage, you could jeopardize the city's ability to be part of that program and our discounted flood insurance rate. So there will be people from community development back out. Mostly this is mobile home parks where you have more than 50% damage you have to build back to code. So just a heads up that will be coming again following this storm due to the magnitude. The parks have been evolving quite a bit. When I put the slide together yesterday afternoon, there was about 4 or 5 times as many parks on it. The number shrunk, and maybe they keep working at it. It may even be smaller now. We lost some docks out in the water, some piers. We still have the golf course down. It's really wet, and there's a lot of damage there. So there's a lot of assistance already out there. We have this slide. We have on our website, we have a severe weather page and an assistance page, but the links are in here for all the other sites that you can go to for assistance. We just found out today we qualify for the blue roof as well. So if anybody has roof damage, you can get a free of charge tarp on your roof. The FEMA local assistance site hasn't been selected yet. They're still looking for one that meets their criteria. They plan to put one here. They think, though, there will only be one in Volusia County for this storm, is what we've heard at this point.
Wayne, do we have any, just a quick pause on that. Do we have anywhere to offer them that meets the criteria that they're looking for?
They're looking for 2,000 square feet plus, full parking lot, full ADA, and they want to use it for about 6 months.
Okay.
So if we had something, we'd have to throw out like programs like these.
No, I meant something, do we have anything available, but, okay.
We don't, that doesn't have something already in it.
Got it, okay.
Like Lakeside or the Adult Activity Center,
Yep.
we'd have to shut operations for 6 months. Now, it doesn't mean there's not a private facility or something that might work in the area, but we couldn't find a city facility met the criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Debris removal will start tomorrow. As part of that, the monitoring site, so we set up our site off Bruner. It was pretty wet too, but we went out there and put gravel down. We've got some asphalt shavings, so it's set up for heavy trucks to come and go. We've got the observation tower in place. The monitoring company's ready to go. They certified the city's trucks today. Now we're working with we had 3 companies under contract. We're working to get guarantees on when. I've got it down here in the challenges. Hurricane Helene did not do us a lot of favors in this area. All the resources, they have millions, like 25 million cubic yards of debris in Georgia, and we have less than 100,000 here. A lot of those trucks are up in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina. We all use the same. There's not a Florida base. It's countrywide. So we're being challenged in that the bigger cities and the bigger damage are taking them. So we've had a couple of different phone calls with all the city managers in the entire county, and everybody is in the same boat trying to get as many trucks here as we can to pick up. And meeting with some of our haulers that we've talked to, the strategy that we're looking at right now is, and this is based on them trying to find the most efficient way to get it picked up as fast as we can get it picked up, is to start out on the west side where we have mostly light debris that's tree vegetative debris, because we can get through that in one pass, and then that gives the people who are flooded and need a little more time to rip out carpet or drywall and get it outside. So we don't want to have to, if you keep coming back to the same neighborhood 3 and 4 times, it takes a lot longer to get there. So the current strategy is likely to be go through the west side, pick up all the vegetation, and then put all the resources in on the east side and go to get it at one point. For the neighborhoods that have private streets, we need a right of entry. We don't own the streets to go in there, so we need those HOAs or the owners of the property to sign a right-of-way entry. Clerk's office is going to handle all that for us, so I've got the contact information here so that they can send it in. We'll take it and go from there. Also, Waste Pro is doing their regular trash pickup. So most of everybody gets their trash picked up on Wednesday. Waste Pro will pick up bags and cans. So this is going to be confusing because the FEMA stuff, if you got a big pile, do not bag it. They won't pick it up if there's bagged debris. But if you're waiting on Waste Pro, one of the hurricanes in the past, I actually ended up getting mine. I was in a neighborhood that was towards the end of being picked up, and Waste Pro, just 4 or 5 bags at a time, picked up my trash. It was all gone before the big trucks came in and got it. So if that's your preference, you can do that. We also have a self drop off if you'd rather do that. You can take it to the landfill now. You'll get charged, I think, to take it out there, but you can do that as well. But we're going to, on the same Bruner site, and there's maps out on our social media and on the web page, so it's up there by the police station. You'd come in off Madeline and come down through Bruner, drop it off, and come back out. But you can go there on Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 6. So you can take it yourself. No contractors. It can't be anything but vegetative debris. But you can bring all your vegetative debris if you don't want to wait on something to take it there. So that's another option for people to move forward on vegetation. It typically takes about 90 days to do this. So we have been able to get a couple of the storms done a little faster than that, but just so the expectation is set, some of the streets probably will be, it'll be closer to Thanksgiving and into early December, probably before we get all of this stuff cleaned up. So just as an expectation going forward. So the second part, that's background on the storm, a lot of resources for people, information. We have this all on the website. If anybody has any questions, let us know, we'll get to you. The second part is an overview. I know there's been a lot of conversation about why do we flood? What happens, what's going on, what has the city done, what have we done to try to make it better for people? How does this system work? So that's what this is. I'm going to go over this briefly. Now, this is a larger view. I'm not going into individual streets, individuals' backyards. It's a bigger picture view. There are always individual circumstances that could affect flooding in individuals' smaller areas, but this is a broader overview of it. So starting off with the history of the city. So the city's been around for a while, over 150 years. This map shows you what's been built. The orange areas were built prior to 1980. The purple areas were built between 80 and 90. That was some of our biggest boom growth, the 80s through the late 90s. We didn't have any stormwater regulations until 1980. That wasn't a thing. It was up to the individual people building stuff. Most of the water just drained off the front of the house into a street. Some of the streets had pipes. Sometimes the streets were the drainage, and the streets held the water. The purple stuff between 80 and 90, there started being some regulation, but basically until 90, there was no real stormwater regulation in place. After that, the requirement came in to build ponds that would hold a certain amount of water. They use lots of different terms, whether you call it the 100-year storm, but people really hate that because they're not coming in 100 years, they're coming every 2, but it was really a statistic of every 1 in 100 chance of having it. What it really means is you have to design your pond to hold about somewhere between 7 and 9 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. So most of the stuff on the west side got built under those standards. So that's, you can see, and I'll go through a little bit more detail in it, but over half of our city got built before there were stormwater regulations. And 25% of it got built before there were any at all. So we're fighting the fact that on the east side we just don't have infrastructure in place. Most of the drainage is simply run off through a street and into natural series of creeks and canals that I'll go through. One of the things we did put in here is the history of our flooding, just to show. So the purple areas indicate where we have seen the most consistent flooding through these storms. You can see the statistics data over the courses of the years. You can see how bad Ian was. We may be a little low on that number for Milton, but the purple area coincides very well with the areas that were built with no stormwater regulations in place. So you kind of see that that's where our repetitive problems are in the areas that weren't built. There's very little of this out on the west side of the city. This slide gets into who maintains the system. So our system in Port Orange is not 100% maintained by the city of Port Orange. There are large features of the stormwater system that are maintained by other governments and a lot of private entities. So what this is showing is the bright orange is county maintained canals, and you can see these 2 big canals, and I'll talk about them more too, but B19 is the one on the left side. The large one that has a green piece at the top is the Nova Canal. The green is state maintenance component of it. The orange is the county. The dark blue colors are Port Orange's. Those are the big canals that we maintain. So Cambridge is the one that's our biggest challenge in the city, trying to make that work. But it requires all 3 levels of government to maintain these canals to make the stormwater system work. And then the pond system, as you see, most of the ponds in the city are private. There's another graphic that'll go into that. But as you look at this drainage system, it requires cooperation from multiple levels of government and all of our neighborhoods to get there. Here's the data on that system. So about 25% of the ponds are public. The rest of them belong to private neighborhoods. This system, and I wish I had one of those cool John Maddens where I could draw on here and show you. But if you look at those big canals coming north to south, so B19 on the left that I showed earlier, Nova on the right, they pull in water from north of us. So, and I've got a good graphic of the Nova system. Yep. B19 goes all the way up to the racetrack and the airport. So water comes from outside the city into the city and comes down through that part of town. That one on the left side actually works a little better during heavy storms because the outfall of that canal, as it goes around behind BJ's and LA Fitness and then loops around through the Bogsford neighborhoods, it comes out higher up, and usually Spruce Creek at that point is not so high. The water can get out of that canal, so it'll get full, and it was really full during the burst late at night. We found water backing up on this one more than we did in Ian, but it tends to drain better even though it is pulling water from north of us in Daytona. The Nova Canal pulls water from all the way up in Ormond Beach, and it comes down, and it does not have the capacity, and it is gravity influenced, and it is tidally influenced at its outfall. You can see at the end where it comes down into Rose Bay. And if Rose Bay is full, and that's a narrow, you can see how it narrows in there. So you shove a tidal surge in there, you're just plugging that up. And when that water can't get out, it just backs up in the canal and comes out and over the edges into the lowest lying areas and floods them. Cambridge, which is a little bit to the west of that, you can see it comes around in loops, same kind of problem. that canal goes back out that same area, same backed up area, and that same little narrow throat. And so those waters can't get out. When they can't get out, they have nowhere else to go but back up. So we built the pump in Cambridge to try to pull all that water and force it out there. But when I show you the details, you'll see, one, we didn't, and this is a 2006-7 era, so none of the current people that are here were here when that got built. But that one was built. It doesn't have a high enough wall, so the tides come in. Nicole overtopped it, Ian overtopped it, and so did Milton. So the water that you're supposed to be holding out and pumping out is coming right back in on top of it. So that's a challenge. When it was originally designed back in the 2000s, the pump shut off at high tide, so it wasn't even running. So we did fix that after Ian, and we put in the temporary replacement to at least hold and pump. But so while the pump worked, we couldn't beat the tidal surge shoving the water in that area. So, and one of the other things I wanted to show on that is that we do have 7 areas where we can pump. So the little purple boxes that you can see on there, those are the areas where we have mechanical equipment that is able to sort of assist the drainage flow. 5 of those are permanent that stay there all the time. 2 are temporary. We pull out at the beginning of hurricane season and leave them there. So those areas we can influence the flow of water. The only one that really doesn't have tidal influence is Sweetwater Hills, because that one goes over to B19 and out, and that was the one that broke. So while we were kind of holding our own until the pump broke, once the pump broke, there was nothing to stop that water from filling in, but that one goes out of a ditch that normally works. The rest of them all either go into the river or go into the same location, trying to fight their way into Nova or fight their way into Cambridge. So we got pretty good results on some of the southern ones, but you can see that there's, of the entire stormwater system, it's a fairly limited area where we can fight nature by trying to pump it with those devices.
Wayne, can you just talk a little bit more about how the decision is made as to when we can pump to, and I appreciate you bringing that, because that's a big question that we get a lot, is why isn't this pond lowered or that pond lowered, and those aren't ponds that we have the ability to lower. But the ones that we do have the ability to lower, can you just touch base on when we decide to pump and why that is, and how that relates to the groundwater, the infill, and the tides and all that?
The target is to have them as low as they can as the peak impact of the storm comes. So if we lower them too early, we have a really high groundwater table here, and they just fill back up from the earth. It comes back up in those. So if we go a week out, we'd have to go back and repump them. And they're different sizes. So some of them are smaller. We can pump them down in 5 to 6 hours, 8 hours. Some of them take a couple days to lower. So the lead time is trying to target that many hours back of when we expect the burst to come in, so that we can have them at their lowest point by the time they get there. We do have limits from the state regulatory agencies on how low we can get them. You can't just turn them into dirt. You can't go all the way down, but we can get them fairly low. You also got to be careful you pump them too low. The walls of the side of it start to fail, and you start seeing failures of the berms on the sides if you get them too low. It's like a swimming pool. You get it too low, it pops up out of the ground. So we have some issues to do that, but we ideally target them. They know how many hours it takes to lower each pond, and they try to hit that ahead of time. Now, like this storm, we had water coming in from there was a lead tropical wave in front of it, and so we were pumping them down for that as well. So they were being pumped several days ahead of this one, going back to the weekend before.
And real quick too, if you could just touch base on the difference between a retention pond pump and a lift station, because I've had some residents that thought that the green lift stations that they were seeing were pond pump stations versus what they're actually designed to do.
So the pond pump, so you can have a pump that has, you can see these outfall structures at the edges, and when they reach a certain amount of water, it goes over the top, and gravity, it flows downhill through gravity. Or you can use a pump that pushes it that way, so you don't have to wait on gravity, particularly if it's flat. So flatter surfaces, not like a mountain where it's going to take itself out. So the pump sort of takes over for there being flat land and pushes it out and forces it. So the pond pumps are at the ponds, forcing the water out the outfalls and downstream. A lift station is part of our sewer system, our wastewater treatment system. And so wastewater, everybody's heard about what goes downhill. So it flows downhill. Lift stations are essentially just big wells, big holes in the ground that hold a bunch of wastewater. And it goes in there, and as it fills up, the pump kicks on and forces that, because everything can't be downhill. Sometimes you got to go uphill to get to the treatment plant. So the lift stations, there's about 120 of them in the city, everything goes downhill to the lift station. When it gets to a certain level, the pump kicks on and forces it through a pump to the sewer plant to be treated. So it works for wastewater, whereas the pond pumps are only working for stormwater in the ponds. Same concept of using a pump to force liquid, but different liquid, sewer liquid instead of water. Thank you.
Not to mention, when you're flooding, you're not just treating wastewater, you're treating all that water that infiltrates the system as well.
Yeah, that hurts us with treatment, is that trying to
Oh, yeah.
tighten up our sewer system so that we minimize that. And there's a little bit in here on some of the capital projects that get to the resilience of the sewer system as well, because it's bad enough to have water, but if you get sewer backing up in your house, that's even worse. So trying to make sure that that doesn't happen to anybody is one of the priorities that we have. There's also just a ton of maintenance that's going on. I think one of the things that we do have going for us is that we have, and I'll show you a little bit, we have 15 people and a bunch of equipment that do maintenance. We have really, these guys do a good job of maintenance. Not all cities take care of their stuff as well as we do on the systems. And it's a lot to take care of for that small of a crowd, but relatively speaking, it is a good crowd. So that's a lot to maintain in the system. But the system itself, if you look at it, thinking about 50% of the city was built prior to stormwater regulations. I was trying to explain it to somebody during the Emergency Operations Center in the hurricane. We basically have a stormwater system built as think of a pint glass. And the hurricanes keep coming and dumping a gallon of water in it. And it doesn't matter how much we maintain it. It doesn't matter. Little things that we do help. In September, when we get 8 inches of rain, this helps. But when you have 20 inches of rain in a hurricane, pouring a gallon of water in that glass, it cannot hold it. It will not hold it. It's not built to hold it, and it never is going to hold it until we make major changes. Because you can't put a gallon of water into a pint glass. And that east side stormwater system was never designed for 15 to 20 to 25 inch rainstorms. It is not designed to handle that much water. And little one-offs here and there aren't going to, this is a bigger global community-wide. In fact, NOVA is all the way up to Ormond Beach problem. It's going to take people working together to solve some of that, because the pint glass has got to be bigger to handle those kind of storms. So this is the NOVA basin, just showing you that. So the colors of the cities that are on there, so that's Ormond in pink up in top. The green is Holly Hill. The blue, Daytona, South Daytona is in yellow, and we're in orange. So it goes through all those cities. The little pink lines around it are everywhere that drains into NOVA. And you can see we're down at the bottom. And there's only 3 outfalls to that huge canal that's taken all of that water through multiple drainage basins in multiple cities. That structure, and I wasn't here, I'm old, but I'm not old enough to have been here in World War II. But what I understand is that that's the same outfall structure that this had in the 40s and 50s when there was nothing west of Nova but farmland. So that was built for basically just grass and cows on the west side. It never got improved. I've had a couple engineers say there should be at least 6 outfalls. You know, one more, anything helps, but the 3 that are there are woefully inadequate to take the amount of water going in there and coming in and going out. We sit at the bottom, so ours is blocked by high tide. Same thing happens at Reed Canal. South Daytona runs into the same thing. They've got a gate. When the tide comes up, it's locked. They can't get water out of theirs. The other one's LPGA. So that is not enough to clear that canal. A lot of it comes down and ends up in Port Orange.
Well, and you can't make water turn right very easily either. That brings us to the point of the Army Corps of Engineers study that Daytona got, that we helped advocate for, because it's hard enough holding our own water, much less processing everybody else's. Daytona has that bowl where everybody floods and they get a lot of attention, and they have no outfalls. So we're handling our water and the water from that outfall. And then I was absolutely gratified this spring when we heard that there was going to be a major project to reinvigorate the Nova Canal. The state of Florida was going to go spend time with this Nova Canal, which they're supposed to be maintaining and haven't efficiently for the last 85 years. So great. I didn't see any results from that, and I am wholly disappointed in the state of Florida with that. And they're going to hear about it from me, because that Nova Canal, we got that much water, and they cleaned it. They did no regrading, and you can't take an 85-year-old canal where sand is sideways and tell me it doesn't need regraded when we've had all these issues. They did no regrading, and simply cleaning it is something that you can't act like that's a major project. That's something they should be doing ongoing anyway. They made it sound like a great project when all it to me was ongoing maintenance. It should have been done, and it was a major project because the maintenance hadn't been done. The major project was just catching up on maintenance.
Yeah.
It doesn't do enough at scale to move the water and increase the capacity, which is where it's problems.
And Mayor, I think too, when they mentioned that the project's ongoing, because of course they started all the way to the north, they haven't even made it to Port Orange yet. The project isn't supposed to be done until the end of December.
Which made that water up there flow faster.
Yeah, that's
to
what I
us.
mean. It got here, but they
And-
haven't even made it to Port Orange
and
yet to clean our end.
Yeah, it's a mess.
I think that's a huge frustration that is decades and decades and decades old, is that those outfalls they just don't exist that should be in the cities to the north of us, to where what's happening, there's just the natural
Oh,
topography.
they very much want them.
Yeah, well, just the natural topography of Volusia County. It's all got to go out the inlet at some point. That's where it's going. It's all going out the inlet with an outgoing tide. And when you drive that much water into the southern cities, namely us, eventually what happens is that World War II canal system is going to overflow its bank somewhere. And now it's at the fate of the natural topography, which means, for the most part, it's going to flow eastward through neighborhoods and roads and
Every little
backyards
problem
and-
we have becomes a big problem. Right. And now we need to address our little problems. We need to address our big problems, but that exacerbates everything. So yes, that's why we were big advocates for Daytona Beach and that Army Corps of Engineers study, because it's going to take big federal dollars to make that change, but it's not going to happen fast. That study is still being done. It's not going to be complete till the end of summer, last I heard. And even then they got to go get dollars for projects that come out of that. And I'm going to be in line helping advocate for that as well.
The next set's, what have we done since Ian under these categories? And I won't spend there's some pictures, but I'm not going to go in great depth on the maintenance, but just that we get out there, we have, in the old days, we used corrugated metal in the older neighborhoods as the pipe of choice. Corrugated metal doesn't work well in a saline climate like this. It rusts, and if those pipes are under the road and one of them fails, the road goes with it. So we have several miles of that, and we have been methodically replacing this 100%, trying to get all of the corrugated metal out of the city. So that's ongoing to keep that up. We have a number of ditches we get into. We have some equipment that you can drive down the road and reach over. A bucket basically reaches over and cleans out, but others you put down in the ditch. But that requires a skilled operator. You can't just grab me and let me go do it. You got to have somebody who knows what they're doing. And the climate is pretty harsh on these pieces of equipment. So they break down, so that we're going to have parts of the year where we don't have them. So all of our pieces of equipment that are down in mucky, marshy water, we do our best to keep them up as long as we can, but there's periods where they're under repair. But we got those 26 miles of these ditches that they're out there working on every year. And then we also have all of our inlets. We got hundreds of these inlets. They between normal wear and tear, sometimes they get busted, sometimes people drive on them, sometimes things get into them. So we constantly go through the process of keeping these things upgraded and maintained, clearing out different trees. The street sweeper program has been very good. We have 2 now. Council has authorized 2 new street sweepers, so we'll have a total of 4 this year. To get out there, we send them out, particularly the area north of Dunlawton, east of Nova. It is a lot of debris, a little bit when you get up into the Madeline area on the west side of Nova, but what our street troopers have found, those areas have the most tree debris down and clogging the drainage system, so they prioritize that. So some areas that have mostly palm fronds, they will probably do 2 or 3 trips through those neighborhoods before they will do just one in the other part. So they're methodically and strategically sent to the areas where we see the most issues. So this is getting into the actual physical improvement. So we maintain the system, but also what are we doing to build a better system? The short-term ones, I don't have any pictures of this, but one of the things that we've been out trying since Ian, everything we can think of. We've moved pumps in different locations, tested pumps. We've put dye in the water at various tide levels to see where the water goes when the pumps are on, to try to track it. The conveyance, what we're trying to figure out is ways to get water from the ditches that don't have capacity into ponds faster, and trying to get the water from the ponds out and into the the bay quicker. So we've been trying to figure out, are there ways to enlarge the outfalls, or are the outfalls at the right levels? Are weirs set? So they've been out little by little, and obviously, and I get that none of those things, they made little difference. This is not going to solve our problem with Milton. We still got to do it because you don't want people to flood, and you don't want these problems to exist in an August rainfall either. So these things are important on the smaller scale. Those things don't help the big picture of a Milton. So the mid-range and the long-range projects are what help the bigger picture stuff. So these are the current focus projects. The little purple blobs indicate the areas where we've seen the most flooding in the last couple storms. So those are the areas that get hit pretty hard. There's a couple, these are the ones we talked about this about a year ago. We were going over the stormwater fees. Probably the biggest one, so well, two things. We got Jackson and Oak, which was getting ready to go under construction. So that one was, until the storms came, we had signs up and we were getting ready to start doing that project, piping that ditch and both sides between Jackson and Oak Street. The Cambridge pump, the permanent repair to Cambridge, and I've got a picture of that to show you, that is well along the design process. It's really close to being done, almost 100%. The Cambridge project, the Jackson Oak's getting ready to start. The pond at Pepper Hill that we just bought, that's right adjacent to Sugar Forest, that one is about 60% design. So we think that Sugar Forest area pond and the Cambridge will start construction next summer. So those two projects were moving along. We just didn't get them ahead of the storms. So the permits required to do, particularly the Cambridge one, where we've got to get state and federal level permits to go under the railroad tracks. I'll show you that. Those are projects that are out there and being worked on as we speak.
In regards to Cambridge, now that we know that the original design was under-engineered, are we going to make sure that as we re-engineer the permanent fix, that it accounts for what we just went through?
So here's the broad picture of the Cambridge Basin. You get an idea of down at the bottom, the white box at the bottom that points up, that's where the pump is located. And right now, so it comes around and comes out there, the pump pushes straight north, and you see that's the narrow throat we were talking about.
Right.
And then the marsh that goes back up in there between the two neighborhoods and comes up by the driving range in that area. Right now it pushes north, and then the tide comes in that narrow throat and shoves it back down. I just want to be able to see, so when we pump it east instead of pumping it north, see how there's a much larger bay and an easy area for it to get out. So the design, and this is more of a conceptual picture of it than an engineering drawing, but the big line across the top is raising the berm over 3 feet so that it doesn't get overtopped by the storm, so we can continue to pump even in the worst parts. Then you can kind of see underneath the thick gray line the outfall that pushes out, so you go under the tracks and out to the wider area. So we think that if the pump's pumping in that area, that will get the water out instead of it just pushing right back up. So I think that's where the flaw was. One, it wasn't built high enough for a storm of 15 to 23 inches of rain. And two, even if it was, with the wall, you're still pushing the water north and it doesn't have as easy chance to get out. So the eastward direction should allow us to run that pump during the worst parts of the storm and have some chance of beating the storm surges that are coming in the high tide.
What will, do we have any idea what the storm surge, I mean, obviously there's going to always be limitations. Do we have any idea what the storm surge limitations will be with that? Because it kind of, if we get a storm surge coming from the Atlantic side, that railroad track's not that high. I mean, once it surges completely over that land and area, then it's all underwater, right?
It's a pretty high berm because the railroad didn't want to lose their track in the storm. So it actually is higher than anything we have around there. That's the highest berm is there. I don't think we've ever had water overtop that railroad track
Okay,
into that.
good.
So that's a solid side. And then the other one.
So do we have an idea what the storm surge limitation could be?
We had 5 feet for what we believed was a 5-foot storm, so it was one of the bigger ones we've had, and we had about 3 feet of water over the top of the sandbags that are there now.
Okay.
So he's got it to go higher than that.
Okay, I guess you need to go back to the, with the rest of the projects.
No.
I know we spent a lot of money to get that lot across from Sugar Forest and Pepper Hill, and I know that's under design. I saw that. I was wondering what the timeline was on that.
So design 60%, it'll start construction next summer.
Okay. So we got Southwind Storm Pump Station, design starting winter, I guess I gotta put these on.
Southwinds is a closed basin, so that one is, it's their only major area that has no outfall anywhere.
Okay.
So the schools have been nice. We have been able to pump into their dry ponds, and this will allow us to get into a canal system and help lower that water. Because right now, it has nowhere to go.
Okay, we got Portona, which all that water in that big blob heads east to. Nova Canal improvements.
The big one, the Nova Canal, so this is one, I was talking to Vice Mayor Stiltner about this earlier today, that is a proposed outfall in Port Orange along the Dunlawton corridor right now. So this is an estimated close to $40 million project with a 5-foot to 6-foot pipe with a gigantic pump, and you just take all the water coming down Nova, put it somewhere about where Rue and Ziffer and our wastewater treatment plant are, and pump all that stuff out into the water and get it to a point where the tide won't stop it. So you got to go farther out than right at the edge. So where the one in Daytona at Reed Canal doesn't go out far enough, the tide stops it. We got to go where the tide can't stop it. So it doesn't matter what the tide is, doesn't matter what the surge is, you're forcing that water out into the river. The river will take it away out into the ocean, but we got to get it far enough out so that it doesn't get blocked.
Yeah.
So that's a conceptual project. It matches conversations that have been had with other outfalls. There was one at one point that I think was an Oak Street type concept for it too. It's going to be hard. You dig a pipe that big, you're going to it's going to create a scar to put something like that in the ground to make it work. But something's got to be done dramatic, or the Nova Canal, which is flooding everything north of it. As soon as it fills up, all those neighborhoods like Sugar Forest and all the others on the other side, they don't know where the water to go. So it's just sitting there backing up
The
on 'em.
neighborhoods to the south,
And so
Treasure Isle.
yeah, the idea from this is to pull the water out of it and shoot it out into the river so it doesn't flood there, and then it reduces the amount of water going downstream, so you have less backing up down at the southern end as well. That's the kind of project that will require state and federal assistance to pull off.
It will also probably have a positive impact on not flooding a FPL substation there.
And they could, build some kind of defense around it too. That would be helpful to have something like that hospital in Tampa, something that.
It would be nice if they say they're going to fortify their substation, that they actually fortify their substation.
We try to help the best we can, but that canal is beyond, it's not like you saw that maintenance on there. There's a whole lot of parties involved in trying to make that canal work. And you put 15 inches of rain in it, it's not going to.
Well, the problem with Nova Canal is there's a lot of moving parts, and this is certainly a big one, big project that would make a big impact, and big projects, big impact happens slow. But they start with what we've done in the last 18 months with this, and we need to push, we need to hit the gas, because there'll be federal dollars available for these things. There'll also be some state dollars. So but even once those dollars are assigned, we got to get the project done. You got to get land to do it. You've got all the impacts of that, and frankly, particularly when it comes to the land to do it, when it's fresh in mind, people are willing to deal. When it's not so fresh in mind after what we've dealt with, it's harder to deal. So we need to definitely push the pace on that one.
Anything else on these projects?
Council, any other questions on this, the projects on this slide?
You would touch on the Sleepy Hollow area?
Yeah, the DOT built the big pond that's there behind the businesses when they built Nova, and then the city went in between there and the actual houses. There was just like a little ditch and some grass, trees in that area. So sometime after I think before I started here, the city put that pond in there, the smaller one on the top. The smaller top pond actually outfalls over to the south. It goes out and around to B19, and you can kind of see it. I don't know if it shows up on one of these slides. I don't know if I have a good one of it, but it has a little longer path. It goes up the side of the Sleepy Hollow neighborhood and then cuts across a ditch and then goes by Bushman Park and then down into Nova. So that little pond goes a long way out of the way. The big pond just goes straight out into a pipe through Nova and right down into the water in that area. So the idea was to try to work on the bigger pond and do that. We had a little failure in the berm. It just solid 40-foot wide section failed right before the storm, and the small pond flowed into the big pond. The big pond gets out quicker. So that's the idea, is to try to pull from the bigger pond, maybe even combine them all into one pond and use that one outfall device to pump that water out and down quicker to the Nova Canal. So I know the last thing people want to hear when they've had flooding is people talking about ideas and thinking and plans, but plans are how you get federal and state money. So if you can go to the people who have money and say, we have a plan, it's part of a strategy. And so the Stormwater Master Plan will be complete in the spring. The Resilient Florida program has something, that they have a lot of money assigned to the Resilient Florida, but you have to do a vulnerability assessment to do that. So we got both of these projects underway. The Stormwater Master Plan, we have a model already done and in place, and what they're doing now is taking the model and trying to design projects to see what will have the most positive impact. You want to also make sure that you don't try to fix one problem and create a problem for somebody else by how you do it. So the program is putting that together. That'll drive our next 20 years worth of construction projects related to stormwater, to prioritize the projects, it'll prioritize the maintenance, and it will make us eligible for lots of money. One of the things about this, because of the period of time that we're in right now, we haven't finalized it. So Robin started a team. When I started as manager a couple years ago, one of the things I realized, we didn't have a good outreach to people. So Robin has a group that goes out when people call with issues, whether it's trees or flooding or whatever the concerns are. They go out and see people, and they've gone to probably about 40, 50 people's homes already to look at various drainage issues. And I was talking to the city engineer today about this, and if there are people who have individual circumstances that would like to have that group come see their situation and talk about it, because what we want to make sure is when we go out and spend $50, $60 million on construction projects to fix drainage, that it works. We don't want to have an issue like the pond that didn't work, or the wall that failed at Cambridge. So you want to be sure what you're designing is a very effective project in the long term. So they're ready to go out and see people and hear show us in the backyard what did it do, so that we know if we do this project, how will it affect your property. So while this is a plan, it is it's a chance to figure out how to make things work in the real world. And it will make us eligible for a lot of money, which means we can do more of it and do more of it faster. So this is just a quick briefing of their budget. About $15 million a year that they have. The point here is most of it is all in either construction projects or paying for, maintaining, and operating equipment. So the big pieces of equipment to keep them working, to keep them fueled, there's very little. Like the city as a whole, about 60% of the city's general fund is personnel. The stormwater system's just a little over 10%. So it is a budget heavy on building stuff and equipment to maintain stuff with, which means there's not a lot of guys. So they probably at some point could use some more power to get out there, but most of this budget is focused on physical changes in the stormwater system. And it just leads me back to this. This is the concluding slide, just showing the system overall as a whole. Mostly half the city built prior to stormwater regulations, relying on multiple agencies to maintain. Our system is built as a pint, and these two hurricanes that came through recently are dumping a gallon of water. That system was not built and could not hold that amount of water. It will take some work to get even. I don't know that we'll ever get to one that holds Ian level water, but the improvements will be coming forward. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. That's an awful lot of information, and I know we've asked some questions as we went along, but let's get through ours, and then we're going to hear from the public on everything else. But did you, as you went, Drew? What else you got to add?
No, I'd like to. Yeah, I don't want to take away any time from them.
Okay. No, they're not. We're not taking any time away from them. They're going to get all the time they need. The Stormwater Master Plan and the vulnerability study, Wayne. I'm sorry that you said I know we had difficulties with the state getting the vulnerability study underway, but and I know it's not a fast process. You said that that's going to be done by summer?
Correct. The spring we'll finish the master plan, and the vulnerability assessment will be in the summer.
Okay. I think you and I had a conversation about 9, 10 o'clock at night, and we talked about the rainfall we'd had leading up to it was significant, but 12 hours later, we added 14 inches to that. I know most of our systems can handle 8 to 10 inches of rain in 24 hours, and even with the saturation point, this is overwhelming for a lot of people, including us. And I know that we're not alone in the city, the county, and the state, but this is our focus and this is our challenge. How do we be innovative and maybe show other people innovation and how innovation works? We can be leaders in solving problems, and I don't want to be follower. You know, sometimes when you're, Bob Ford used to say, being on the leading edge meant you're on the bleeding edge. Sometimes you need to be on the leading edge because we need to be first. Okay. Do you have anything else to add, Wayne, before we move on to
No,
public
sir.
participation? Okay. Let's do that then. Public participation, I've had a number of people sign up to speak, and that's fine. If you want to speak, make sure you get a comment card, hand it to the clerk. You've got 3 minutes. We'll time you. When you come up, just tell us your name, where you live. We're going to be listening to you. We're going to be taking a lot of notes. And if you have specific neighborhood problems, please feel free to share those, because what we gave you was a larger overview. And when we're managing a large system, 4,500 storm drains, 25 miles of pipe, the smaller individual issues, that is helpful. Now, I can't promise anything fast because it's simply not going to happen. But at the same time, it starts with getting all the information, and we're going to get all the information we possibly can, and that's where it starts. I appreciate that. With that, Cheryl Ransom.
Is she here?
Carol Ramsey. I'll save them, and if they don't come back, come on up. I heard that.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity. I live in Gatewood, in the Gatewood neighborhood, which is right off of Nova. And I moved there specifically in 2021 because it was not in a flood zone and it had never flooded. I remodeled it and I flooded in Ian and I just flooded again. We have a river running down our street. And people that have been there since these duplexes were built in the mid to late 80s said it's never, ever happened before. But it started when the schools paved tennis courts and basketball courts. So what I'm asking is, let's take a look at Gatewood. Everyone along my street flooded, and that's never happened before, but it's happened now twice in the last 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Dawn Evans? Dawn Evans?
That's the address.
115 Moonstone Court?
Dawn?
Pammy Yoder?
I'm in Foxborough, which my understanding is it has to do with the Cambridge. I wanted to ask, are you county or who, are you with the city of Port Orange? You, sir?
That's the city manager.
City manager with Port Orange, okay. I didn't know, you're very knowledgeable about what you know.
Yeah.
So my understanding is when that Cambridge broke or whatever during Ian, that was the cause of our problem. And we were told then 2 years, I believe it'd be fixed. 2 years later, and that directly affects me. I'm in Foxborough subdivision, flooded about almost 2 foot in Ian, and I've got another 7 inches in my house now. We have the front pond at the beginning of Nova Road. There's a break in that. That has not been fixed either. My husband's called a couple times on that one. And I can't help but to think, I think that flows back into behind Circle K. That didn't have something to do with us retaining the water. But basically what I'm gonna take away from this, and I'm not very happy about, is we've got all these improvement projects, but even if we can complete them and can complete them wholly, that it's not necessarily gonna solve all of our problems. That's what I'm hearing. Is that about right? So what does that do to the values of our homes? What do we do about that? We've invested, I'm almost, 60 years old. I'm looking to retire. I put over $60,000 in my house to fix it the first time. And now I got flood insurance, and of course we gotta navigate through that. But what you guys are saying, even if all of this stuff happens, it's not necessarily gonna solve all of our problems. Right.
Y'all do me a favor.
Wait.
I will listen to everybody that wants to speak, but when there's a speaker up here, and I know you're cheering her on, but don't interrupt her, because some people are good at this and some people not so much, and when you break their flow, I want to hear from them. It's okay to cheer them, but let them finish first, okay? I'm not going to stop any, but there's a lot going on, but go ahead.
So I have heard that New Smyrna has put a moratorium on building, no building till they get it figured out. But this is a deep problem I'm hearing. It's a deep problem within, if it goes back to World War II and the draining system isn't adequate, how do you fix it? So it doesn't leave me as a resident very happy with this city. Not that I'm not happy with you guys, but, I love
Completely
Port Orange.
understandable.
And, I don't know what we're gonna do about it, but I'm not very happy walking away from here. The money I've invested into my home and the improvements I put into my home, I'm probably gonna lose money on my house. So, but thanks for hearing us all tonight.
Absolutely. Rob Pasternak?
I'm Rob Pasternak. I'm a resident here locally. Lived in Port Orange in Volusia County for quite a while. Seen a lot of flooding 2 years ago and now. I saw some of these projects would take $50 million to fix it. I was actually just looking up on my phone, what's the Port Orange annual budget? I know you guys deal with a lot of money, and it's really just in where you spend that money. You could have fixed this stormwater infrastructure, but you've chosen not to. I saw a lot of money got spent in the median and Dunlawton there. Crepe myrtles weren't good enough. We had to put palms. Meanwhile, people's homes are flooding. I know Volusia County has had a study in their hands for 15 years now, which identified a number of problems that guaranteed homes in my neighborhood would flood if they weren't done. They're still not done. I know you guys have the solutions in your hands. We engineer solutions for floodwaters and stormwater all over the place. All we have to do is put the effort in. You might have to say other things have to sit by the wayside, while things that are going to keep people in their homes that they pay a lot of money to keep, this stuff needs to be handled. I'm pretty emotional about this. I got multiple properties that are flooded now. My mother-in-law can't live in the house. My best friend can't live in the house right now. And I just feel like there are things that we could do that we're not doing. Obviously it's a big deal. We got a packed house here because people can't live in their homes. I mean, we pay tens of thousands of dollars, some of these people, for property taxes. And we're not going to be able to keep our homes because we can't repair them after the storm. Can't keep up with these rising insurance costs. What's our government doing to help us? And if you won't help us, then we'll have to help ourselves one way or another. At the end of the day, even the Spruce Creek needs to be dredged. You know, there's a lot of problems, and we're just not taking care of them. You're choosing to identify other things as the priority. But if someone can't live in their house, how is anything else? How is the beautification of the city important in comparison? And we talk about, you know, some of the amount of money that it costs. 60%, I think, was the figure spent on personnel. But that personnel, I don't think, is used as efficiently as it could be. How many times do we see city workers, 4 of them standing there, while one guy's down in the hole with a shovel? I need to work on efficiency citywide. Needs to be a concern, not just a concern, but a priority. And there are too many things slipping through the cracks. No one wants to live here if their house floods. We can't fight nature 100%, but there's a lot of things we can do to defend ourselves. And we're counting on you to lead the way.
Thank you. Jane Flanagan. 713 Christine Court.
She's making her way through, Mayor.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Jane Flanagan. I live in Sleepy Hollow, and it has flooded twice, or actually it's flooded more frequently than that. Other people have gotten water in previous years when we haven't had 17 inches of rain or 15 inches of rain. I know that my house has flooded 4 times. Not as bad, of course, but what's happening? We got, like the guy said, the other lady said, there's multiple people in here from Sleepy Hollow. The whole half of it flooded. I don't know, we didn't have as much an issue until they filled in the big canal behind us with a 36-inch pipe. Anything we can do? I mean, how many times can you fix your house? And everybody I've spoken to has said that they're gonna sell. But what's your property gonna be worth? And everybody has mortgages. The first time Ian went through, nobody had flood insurance. Insurance company said, oh, we're not in a flood zone. You don't have to worry about it. Yep. So, I mean, you know, they're gonna move someplace else. Ormond Beach doesn't flood.
That's not true.
That's not true.
And I've lived here over 30 years, so thanks, but I hope that we get something done.
Thank you. George Sensrick, 5760 Sweetwater.
George is
Hey, George.
Yeah.
Right in front there. Nope,
No,
stay on the other side.
in front, this way. You got it.
I've been in the hallway.
That's all right.
We got you in
As
here
he
now.
said, George and Sarek, 5760 Sweetwater Boulevard. I have a rental home behind a pizza place off of Herbert Street in a little town. There's a street called Clara. And it floods. It flooded Ian. It flooded this time here. I guess what I would ask the council, I know you have a lot of plans and projects. That sounds great. But to have somebody come there and just overview it, like the lady said before, back in the 70s, there was a little gas station or a little a tire store and a little restaurant. And back then, they told them that they wanted to expand, and they told the exact words from some city council member was absolutely not. You need to put a retention pond in because you cannot put that much of an elevated home or a business to where you're going to have it up here to where you're going to flood 5 people behind you. So that's the downfall of having a property that's older, like my rental property. With that being said, I would love to have somebody go by on Clara and see. There's an old time lawnmower shop there too. And honestly, it's got a little ditch that's about as big as this desk. I can jump from one end to the other, and there's a small pipe, which looks very outdated. Maybe somebody could look at that and see where those pipes run. Sometimes there might be a clog. It might be an overlooked thing. I don't know. I'm here. I feel sorry for the people that do. You know, you get pretty good at drying out and putting microbe in, and throwing the furniture out to the curb and your tenants and my kids live there and everything. With that being said, I know it's a big project, but they moved that B19 on Sweetwater right up to my fence, and I was petrified because I thought that runs, as they say, from International all the way down. And after that happens, like you said, sometimes you can handle all that water to where my house is, then under the metal bridge, the people they're getting it's, going into their yards and stuff because you're changing the it used to be Crooked Creek is what they used to name that. But anyways, with that being said, if somebody can come and have a time to look at it, I know you've got your hands full now, look at some of the piping and stuff in that Claris court right behind Giuseppe's, and they're building another parking lot there where it used to be maybe a drainage runoffs, and they're talking about one house got sold, and that's going to be more of a parking lot too. So like I said, you can't put it up on stilts when you own the property. You got to disclose it if you sell it. So it's not that easy, to just walk away from it. But so anybody that can come by and look at that area, I would appreciate
When you
it.
got it? Okay.
Yes. Okay, we'll call that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, George.
All right, Beth Forbes.
Good evening. I was here November 1st, 2022, telling you about the flood in Willow Run neighborhood, specifically Craig Court and Casey Lane. Approximately 4 streets run into the storm systems. It is apparent that it's under-engineered, and I would ask that the city do something. 2 of my neighbors, one of them spent $80,000 repairing his home from Ian, and the other neighbor spent $90,000 repairing his home from Ian. I received a message from Benjamin Bartlett with Volusia County because I kept pursuing that nothing's being done. He tells me it was a 500-year storm. Ian, well, what is this one? Because this one was way worse for us than what Ian was. And then a city person came by after Milton. He identified himself as Johnny, asked if he could come in my house and see what the flood did to me. And I let him, and he said, oh, this is nothing. Well, it's something to me. It's my home.
Absolutely.
It is my investment, and I'm of the age that I can't go back and make up the money to cover what I've lost in the property value. So again, I ask that someone look at Willow Run subdivision, specifically Craig Court and Casey Lane. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. Dennis Van Landite, 5793 Devon Street. And if I butchered the last name,
I'm used to it.
I was going to say it won't be the first one I butcher. I'm sorry.
I live on Devon, just north of Taylor. Got flooded pretty bad in Ian, 30 inches of water in my house. I got another 18 inches this time. The only reason why it wasn't worse this time is because I learned from Ian. I blocked my garage. I had it to where everything was sealed up. 4:15 in the morning, I wake up to water coming out of my toilet. Evidently, the lift station was not working. Power was lost about 10:15 the night before. I'm assuming there's no generator on the lift station that's right in front of my house. I know you guys know there's a problem there because you bought my neighbor's house and bulldozed it to put another lift station. I would like to know I know you probably can't answer now, but I'd like to know what the plans are for that property, when it's expected to happen, and I think everybody here deserves transparency of what the plans are. Maybe put something on the website, put it on your Facebook page, show people what the plans are, show people what the progress is, because we're all pretty frustrated right now. We don't mean to take it out on you guys, but
It's okay.
we count on you guys.
It's okay.
And it's a lot to go through this twice. It's easier the second time, but it really sucks to have to rip out all your drywall, lose all your memories. I'm lucky I'm in a 2-story house. My living space is upstairs. I've got a lot of neighbors that everything is one level. They've lost everything again. And a lot of my neighbors are not coming back.
Yeah.
Dennis, what street are you on again?
I'm on Devon, just north
Okay.
of Taylor.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Lisa Ty?
Christmas display, that 2-story house.
Lisa Ty, 714 Herbert.
Hello,
Hey, man.
Lisa Ty.
We want to be able to hear you. Hang on 1 second. Go ahead.
Lisa Ty, 714 Herbert Street. Number 1, how many car washes and storage units do we need in Port Orange? Why are you allowing all this building with no drainage to compensate for all the extra apartments and buildings and houses? There are empty, half-empty malls, but yet you let these people build new. You assess all of us in Port Orange for flood fees, yet we are all flooded. We have a retention pond that hasn't been cleaned in I don't know how long. I guess there was somebody, his name was Bill, 15 years ago. He was the chief of police. He didn't like the drainage ditch that was going next to his house, and he used his pole to close the drainage ditch that blocked off that retaining pond. That would solve a lot of our problems. Then we have the drainage grate in front of my other neighbor's house that's so clogged, it's a flat grate. It doesn't drain anywhere except to my house. Then we have another drainage ditch that's down the street. I'm not quite sure what the problem is with that one. My neighbor said that there's a pond that you open your drainage on during floods to flood our street on Herbert. Then we have a drainage ditch across the street from my house that is so thick with thatch, I took video and pictures of a regular normal rain. 5 days it took to drain that drainage ditch. 5 days. I lost everything in Ian. We had over 2.5 feet in my house. I lost everything again. I just moved in March. I just moved into my house. All my brand new furniture, everything is gone. I have to start all over again. Then I have the city engineer who comes down and talks to us, and she makes a joke at my expense about how I flooded. How dare she? How dare she? She's laughing at me. How did you make out you're a foot above flood level? Ha ha ha! Who does she think she is? Then,
she works for us.
And she works for us. Thank you very much. The last thing is that you send the traffic down Herbert Street when they come speeding through. Where I live on Herbert Street, it comes down like this. And these trucks and cars, I'm opening my front door to let the water out of my house, and these cars and trucks are going by, bringing it right back in. We call the city and say, send somebody, put up barricades so they don't come speeding through and ruin what I'm trying to fix. And yes, we will, but where were they? They were nowhere. That's where they were. Something has to be done. I've lived in this house 4 years and I flooded twice. And I'm tired. Clean the damn ditches. And yes, I do blame all of you.
Sandra Warrington?
Sandra Warrington. He was asking what the name was called.
Oh, my name is Sandra Warrington. I live on North Brighton Drive. 2 years ago, we had floods that reached the roofs of the houses, again this time. There are certain things that the city could be doing. They could be mowing the grass. They could be doing different things to prepare for some of the storms. I've sent letters to Mr. Wayne Clark. I've gone on ClickTick and I've filled out stuff. Never get a reply to from anybody. Our houses, people just got back into their homes 5 to 6 months ago, completely destroyed again. They have to come in on airboats and get people out. It's ridiculous. People up here have been smirking when people have been talking, which is not good. Now we're being taxed ridiculous again, and there's no recourse. There's no help. There's nothing to salvage. We need help. And you're the one that should be making it happen. You should be our hero, but you're not. You're not. You're just sitting there smugging while she was talking. And it's very sad. You have 2 assistants. You, as the city manager, have 2 assistants. What do? They make over $100,000 a year doing nothing. It's ridiculous. You have people, I mean, we didn't even have sandbags available to us because we ran out. There was no sandbags and there was no actual sand because the director of Public Works miscalculated. Okay? How can he miscalculate? And then you have these city workers that sit over there for the sandbags, taking our IDs, sitting there, playing on their phones, laughing, making jokes at people's expense, while we're helping all the elderly fill up their sandbags, put them into the cars, because your workers aren't doing anything. They are able men. They're just sitting there playing on their phones, being paid by us. It's ridiculous. I'm sorry. Please help us.
You're okay.
Please.
Kurt Barnes, 711 Christina Court.
Yeah, how are we doing tonight? My name's Kurt Barnes. I 711 Christina Court. I've been in Port Orange for about 15 years and I've been in that location for the entire time. And, you know, I don't know. Tonight I come to this presentation and there's a lot of great information. Maybe you could put this presentation online somewhere so I can digest it some more. But it seems like there's a lot of problems that you've known about for many, many years. Like we're talking about this Nova Canal that comes from Ormond floods, Daytona floods, and then we get it. Well, what's being done about that? I mean, how come we don't have 6 outlets like some engineer said? How many years ago was that? I don't know, but my house has flooded twice in the past 2 years. The road in front of my house backs up quite a bit when there is a lot of rain, but you know, nothing's been done. I'm not sure why, but I guess it's just really not a big deal because it's my problem and not yours. It's cheaper to let me flood than for let somebody else deal with it, really. That's what it comes down to. So we have a lot of plans, and like, I plan on being a millionaire one day, but I doubt that's going to happen. So these plans here, I really don't have a lot of enthusiasm or faith about what's really going to happen. I want to know a deadline. When is this going to be fixed? Okay, because how much property value did I lose on that night? Was it like $100,000, $150,000? I have no idea, but that really sucks. And let's talk about the development. So like, you know, the other lady mentioned all of the car washes that are going in and storage units. That's another one, great one. Well, right in front of my house, Sleepy Hollow, there used to be some trees, but I guess you guys authorized somebody to come in, and I guess we're putting in a Quickie Mart there because we need one, and maybe there's going to be a Starbucks there right outside my house. I don't know, but there's something going in right now. I mean, what does that have? How is that going to affect the drainage in an area that we already know that floods? I don't understand that. I mean, that boggles my mind.
They said they were going to fix it next spring.
Yeah. What else? I've got 47 seconds, so I'm going to stand here and use them. Something will come to me. Yeah, it just seems that you guys have known, or the city of Port Orange has known about this area for quite a while. And I live in an older historic district. I just don't know why it wasn't brought up to code, why the culvert, the drainage retention in front of my house has not been enlarged by another 6 inches. I don't know, whatever. But we've known about these problems for quite a while. Let's try to get something done. I think we all need a deadline. Like, this is when this is going to be fixed, guys. That's it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you. John Atencio.
Who was it?
John Atencio, Canal View. Here he comes.
Yeah, my name's John Atencio. I live at 819 Canal View, across the canal from the Florida Power and Light, right around the corner from the substation that went under. All right, we have a bridge there that is a major issue for the drainage of that canal. And it's right, it takes us over to the dirt road where the 10 homes are where we live. After Ian, during Ian, the water came down. I'm well aware how it comes from Daytona. Yeah. I'm fourth generation citizen of Port Orange. It's an old bridge. It's got a very small culvert pipe in it. It cannot handle the water even when we have heavy rains. All right, Ian, the water hit the bridge, crested over the canal, and sent all that water, which is millions of gallons, come down that canal, over onto our property. I had 30 inches of water in the house at Ian. I've lived in that house since 1973. Never had water in my home. Okay? Now here comes Milton. Oh, let me go back. After Ian, I had a city department head there. He was a white-collar worker, nice truck. There was a hole in the bridge where the water come over the side, hits the bank of the bridge, come over and created a large hole in the bridge. Him and I stood there and looked at it. He realized we have a problem. One side is trying to fall. I never seen him again. Never came back. I had to pay to fill that hole in on that bridge. I live on the north side of the bridge. Just as you cross the bridge, there's a sign that says end of public maintenance. That means that bridge belongs to you, the county, somebody. It don't belong to me. Everything on the other side is mine. So I never heard anything about our bridge problem after Ian when I had a city worker there. I'm sure he was a department head, probably public works, whatever. Doesn't matter. But we were abandoned. Okay, now after Milton, it's even worse, and now I have 2 giant holes there. The bridge is unsafe. If we ever needed to bring a fire truck over it, or the garbage trucks that come to pick up the garbage, it's just gonna fall in. And it's creating blockage, which doesn't allow the water to keep moving, okay? So it's a big blockage of the canal the way it's constructed. Up the street, there's a community which probably has 50 people in it. They got a new bridge 10 years ago, but the 10 of it, I guess it's not enough property taxes to be taken serious or something. And there is other bridges, old driveways. I think it was where the Conrays lived, just south of the north part of Eastport. There's still an old bridge there. It does nothing but hold the water back and stop the flow. I don't even know why it's there.
Thank you.
John, I just want to get my bearings real quick. Are you talking about the one that's just slightly adjacent of the FP&L parking lot that's in the back?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's what.
I was just trying to get the.
I'm on the
bearings.
dirt road. It's listed
Okay.
as, it's Canal View, but there's a Hardy Lane
Got it.
sign because Mr. Hardy built that
Yes.
bridge in the 60s.
I'm familiar. I know exactly.
It's outdated and needs to be looked at.
Thanks.
It stops the flow of the Nova Canal.
Okay, we got Robert Williams. Robert Williams on Virginia Avenue.
I'm Bobby. I live on Virginia Avenue. I didn't plan on speaking, but after being here, how happy I am. I hear people say not to place blame, but after talking to a city employee today that came to my house on Virginia Avenue, as Mr. Clark stated, there's not sufficient drainage. There never has been. Now, he was actually in 2007 to 17 the the community development manager, and I think that meant he oversaw permits and other things. Now, the buildings on our road were built in 2015, and ever since that, we've had flooding. Now, when they came today, they told me the buildings aren't up to code. The drainage is not correct. They're supposed to be self-sustaining drains. I said, how did they pass? Well, at the time we were understaffed, so it was sent to St. Johns County, river treatment, whatever, and approved without being looked at by you. Now, it's 2024, we're still flooding, problem hasn't been solved. It's going to be solved now by the new owners of the building who are now going to have to pay for it out of their own pockets because a builder was negligent, and so was our now city manager. My question is, if that happened on our road, how many other building projects has our city manager and council members kind of just not paid attention to, not cared? I've been in this town my entire life. I'm a Sam Sula raised boy. I moved to Port Orange. I love where I live. I bought my house in 2016. It's my forever home. I'm shaking because we've lost everything the first flood, and the only reason we saved stuff this time, it does work. We flex sealed and spray foamed our entire house. It kept the water out mostly. Still have baseboards, but every one of my neighbors lost everything else. And after I found out that this man literally was in charge of that, and I was told that these permits were just pushed through because there was understaffing. And now we look at all the other development, same builder that built these, another 83 on Oak Street, finished last year. Oak Street flooded worse this time. So it clearly is an overdevelopment, which is your fault. I can't put a shed in my backyard without permission from anyone up here. And if I do, you'll tell me to take it down or you'll fine me. So that shows me you guys don't care about your community. You care about your political status and whose back you're scratching. I'm not blaming anyone for being in anyone's pocket because I can't prove that. But I do know there's a lot of crap. I'm a high school dropout, and I know enough to tell you if you build a building 2 foot above home grade, the water's going to go into the houses, which is pretty pathetic that I know that and our city manager doesn't. That's it.
Austin Howells. Austin Howells.
Good evening. I've been trying to muster up the words to say all day today. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. I'm Austin Howes. I live on 216 North Brighton Drive. I was born and raised in all of West Volusia. I've lived in every city, and by far Port Orange is one of my favorites. I left in 2014 and joined the military and served this country for 8 years, moving back with a dream to be able to get my forever home. I'm a single father to this amazing 6-year-old boy right now. I had a dream to come home and build my forever, in my forever home, build it to how I want. I just closed on my first ever home, September 12th of this year. My house just flooded, and I lost a lot. My flood insurance hasn't even kicked in yet because it hasn't hit the 30 days. My homeowner's insurance isn't going to do anything for me because it's a flood. And who knows when FEMA's actually going to kick in. I may have to move to foreclose when I just closed not even hardly a month ago. And that's going to kill me. This home, this neighborhood, I love my neighbors. It's such a fantastic neighborhood. Cambridge, the people there, it's such an amazing community we have here. And we've been banding together to help each other repair from this. But I don't know how I'm going to survive this if I can't actually live in my house. Thank goodness I have family here in Port Orange, otherwise I'd be homeless right now. With a 6-year-old. I'd have to live out of my car if it wasn't for my family here to have my back. But this, what this flood did to me is devastating because I don't know how I'm going to come back from this. I moved into this neighborhood on the false pretense that it's listed as a no flood zone. I have learned from my neighbors that once upon a time it was listed as a flood zone. They removed it before Hurricane Ian. When Hurricane Ian came through and a lot of the neighborhood dropped their flood insurance, a lot of them had to come out of pocket to rebuild themselves. I'm wondering why, after Hurricane Ian, that neighborhood turned into a river, why it was never reinstated as a flood zone, because if it was listed as a flood zone, I would have not touched it with a 10-foot pole, a 1,000-foot pole. I wanted safety and security from my home. And I don't have that, and I'm terrified of rebuilding, living there, and this happening to me again. A lot of my neighbors, this is their 3rd flood in this neighborhood. That whole neighborhood should go back to being orange groves. And I hate to say it because it is such a fantastic neighborhood. But
What street else?
I live on 216 North Brighton Drive. I have lived in the house for 2 weeks actually before I actually got flooded, and I have no avenue for support. I may have to move to foreclose, and that's just going to kill me. I really hope something gets done about this. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Cindy Bacher. Cindy Bacher, Brittany Avenue.
Hello, my name's Cindy Bacher, and I have the unfortunate home on 227 Brittany Avenue in Cambridge. I lived in Port Orange for 42 years. When I see that tree, I remember that when I moved here, there was trees everywhere. There were so many strict rules about how big a sign could be, and it had to be low. We were known as the city green, the city beautiful. It's the city of concrete and asphalt now. I bought my house 8 years ago. It was my dream. It was going to be my final resting place, I guess you could say, because I'm 69 years old. I got flooded by Ian 2 years ago. My 10-month-old grandson and I had to be rescued from the house while we sat on the kitchen counters. And I'm going to try not to get emotional. I had to worry about him falling into the water, and sewage was coming up from my toilet and my shower besides coming in the doors, and it was up to my windows. And I wondered what I was going to do if it breached my window and how I would hold on to him. My oldest son came and rescued us on a jet ski right up to my front door. And I had to take a $60,000 loan out to fix my house. I didn't have flood insurance because I wasn't in a flood zone. Nicole came along. Nobody got flooded by Nicole. I stayed with my son. As we came around the corner off of Taylor and came into my neighborhood off of Devon onto my street, the news camera was there because I was one of the few people who was going to get flooded again because Rose Bay Dam had gotten bridged. I couldn't believe it. And so after I spent about $80,000 fixing up my home, all of my savings, and a $60,000 loan, I got hit by Milton, and I've been wiped out again. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I will tell you I noticed that the houses that were the closest to the draining system, the drain systems were the ones that got flooded the worst. I want to know what my city is going to do for me with the tax dollars that I pay. I still work hard. I still pay into the system. And I love the ideas that you have, but what are you going to do for us? Our properties aren't worth anything anymore. They're worth nothing. Nobody's going to want to live in that neighborhood anymore. Cambridge is like hell now. I don't know, what are we going to do? And that's my retirement, and I'm going to have to keep working, I guess, till I die. I'm very disappointed, and I'm hurt by my city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got Tammy Garozoy and Michael Sampson.
Hi, I'm Tammy, this is Mike. I bought my house in 1999, 25 years ago. My neighbor bought their house about 5 years later, 2004, on our street, Eddy Lane. I back up to the Herbert Street and the Dunn lot, and so I'm directly behind the FPL, the very irate people. I'm in that area. In 2004, I came here to the exact same meeting. I showed my butt a little, ended up on Google or something, I don't know. But what I said was, we have a problem with the drainage in this area. Obviously, my house didn't flood then. In fact, my house didn't flood in the next 10 storms, but 3 out of the 10 houses on my street did. And I came in support of those people 20 years ago with the exact same problem. The street that runs behind us, Canal View, has never, ever been dredged, ever. And there is a canal between Eddy Lane and Lex Court that has never, ever been dredged, ever. So I just want to say, using some of the terminology that you've used in your meeting to show us the widespread damage, obviously the building needs to stop. There's 150 subdivision home going in behind Spruce Creek right now, which is like less than 2 blocks from my house. It's Sugar Mill, sorry, behind Sugar Mill Elementary. So unfortunately, your Army Corps of Engineers blaming all these other towns for their water coming in when you guys haven't done anything in 20 years for specifically my area, which is to the east. In fact, there's just one small purple spot, and apparently you guys have put up one pump, Sweetwater Pump Station, and it failed. You did no backup. You're an engineer. You have many years of education knowing that you don't put a single fail system up. You have to have backups to that so that they don't fail. This is the problem. And I don't know whether we're calling it lift stations or pump stations, but why weren't there backup plans? And when your equipment specifically fails and causes that area specifically, I'm not sure about everybody else, but my area, if that's the only thing you've done in 20 years, the only thing, and your equipment failed, is there some sort of policy or liability or neglect that I can go for? Is there something where we can go back and say, this is negligence on your part? Since I can prove I was here 20 years ago saying the exact same thing and nothing was done. What are we going to do about this? Sorry, babe, you got 10 seconds.
I find you all inept, corrupt. You all need to resign. You're completely worthless. Completely worthless. You sit there and play on that damn computer.
Teresa Perez.
First issue I want to address besides the flooding. So I live in Commonwealth Estates, mobile home park. My grandparents lived, and I used to live in that home, and the address is 5197 Pineland Avenue. And I live at 5221 Pineland Avenue. Well, I've called you guys a couple times because it's technically city property because their property is only 50 by 100. The trees are over the Commonwealth Estates blocking sign that says that it says Commonwealth. You cannot see. I have to pull over the stop sign to actually see the traffic coming from US 1. I have almost got hit twice, and I'm in a pickup truck. And I would like the limbs cut so people can see. I'm tired of calling and no one doing anything about it. That's my first issue, because I've made complaints. The second issue is the flooding. I am very fortunate that I did not flood, but I have many neighbors that have flood and friends. And we have lived here for over 30 years and never had flooding until Ian. And I'm sorry, we went through Charlie and all that, and when those 3 hurricanes hit us, okay, nothing compared to Ian, nothing compared to Milton. My friend is not going to be living back in her house. She'd been flooded and spent all this money. And a tree just went through her roof, and she lives right off of US 1 in Dunlawton. So, and they're going to sell their house or whatever is going to happen because she also asked for you guys to see about lifting up the house when Ian hit. Y'all never answered them, never did anything. And she is a veteran and it was a police officer. And for her to go through this, now her PSD is way out the roof. So, and the other issue about the sandbags is ridiculous. In Ian, you had 3 different places that you could get sandbags here in Port Orange. It was at the city center, it was at the fire department, and at over behind or around Epiphany Catholic Church. This time around, you only had City of Port Orange. The only place that you could get sandbags. And that is ridiculous, but Ian, you had 3 different places that you could go get sandbags for? That doesn't make any sense. And then run out for people that couldn't get sandbags. And then my friend who flooded, who's been in her house for 30 years through Ian and never had a problem until you guys built the water pond across from Spruce Creek High School, flooded in her house, And then she almost got damage from this. But she barely got sandbags for her house. She had to go to somewhere else to get the sandbags because Port Orange ran out. It's ridiculous. So that is my complaints. And y'all, and the other thing is, real quick, and don't tell me that your building is not doing anything, because my neighbor put in next to his, we have our private driveway is concrete. So on his grass part, he put asphalt next to his carport. Do you know that, yes, we got a little bit of water on the back concrete of our alleyway, but the next day it receded. But he was out there taking a wetback and a shovel or a brush to broom it and a blower because he put the asphalt in to put his vehicles or trailers and stuff there. All the water sat there and sat in that water. So for you guys to keep building, that's what's causing it, because there's no trees to soak up the water. All this building that you guys are doing in Port Orange is ridiculous, and it's causing the flooding.
Thank you.
So that was exactly by looking at my neighbor's place to see how flooding could happen with all that water sitting in there.
James Houlihan.
I addressed this group. My name is James Houlihan. I live in Sugar Forest. I addressed the group, I guess, a year and a half ago and asked you to please do what you could to help us, which I guess you purchased the property, but still nothing has happened. We had in our home 9 inches of rain during Ian. This time, no, we had 10 inches then. I'm sorry, 10 inches then. This time we have 9. Last time, it was because the Nova Canal overflowed. This time, the Nova Canal did not overflow yet.
It did. Yes, it did.
Oh,
It did.
I don't think so. Not
Okay.
what I saw by where I am. I saw
All
what
right,
it crested.
but it did.
All right. I personally believe that the storage facility that was built there is causing a problem. The retention pond they have on the side was full before the hurricane hit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well above the road as well.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that, again, everybody talks about overbuilding, and that is probably part of the problem. The place is built, there's so much concrete there now that used to be the horse for stables. It can't absorb anything, and it's got to go someplace. Is there some kind of a connection that takes water from there and puts it into the Nova Canal? Where does the water go? Surely not going into that little pond that they created, especially since it's so not narrow, but not deep enough.
No.
The other thing I suggest is possibly that communities like ours in Sugar Forest, why don't we create some kind of community group that would interact with the city to find out what's going on? We have no idea. Nobody keeps us informed. I read the information from the bulletin, and I don't get a lot of detail from what's going on specifically about my property. Naturally, I'm interested in my property, but everybody else here has had the same problem. We just need help. We need to do something. We need to do it faster. You know, we did a $30 million bond for the recreation, which is great. We need to do a significant bond issue to address some of these issues and get them done sooner than later. Nobody can wait another 20 years. I'm almost 80. I can't start this again. I've been breaking my back the last, well, however long it's been since the storm, trying to clean out the house. It's very difficult. And money-wise, that's another whole nother story. But thank you. I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you.
You bet. Barbara Cool, Wyndham Court.
Yes, I'm Barbara Keel. I live at 998 Wyndham Court in Foxborough, near the corner of Nova and Miles Drive, across from the pond, which was lowered. I was so happy to see that. But I really think that a different little drainage, I don't know if it's a retention pond, that my neighbor across the street from me showed me that was behind his house, which I never even knew was there, next to some townhomes that face Nova, that flood all the time. He showed me that and said, I'm not worried about that pond over there, I'm worried about this. It was already up to his fence even before, from the recent rains, before the hurricane came, and he flooded again, and my garage flooded again. And luckily it came within 1 inch of coming into the rest of my house. I was smart enough to purchase a flood insurance policy, even though I don't live in a flood area. I've lived there since 2001. I was through those 3 hurricanes that came through. I think it was 2004. Nothing happened. Nothing's ever happened. I was shocked when I woke up after Ian and opened the front door and there was water there, and shortly it came into my house. So I had to pay completely out of pocket. It cost me a lot of money, and my husband and I are in our 60s. We still work, but we don't have any extra money anymore after fixing it the first time. So that's why I took the flood insurance policy, thank God, because the garage got covered, the utility room, and our back porch. And it seems like they're gonna do something for me. But I don't know what this retention pond is by these homes, of these townhomes that face Nova Road. Do you know what I'm talking about? Because it seems like that place is always, even when it's raining, it's bad in the parking lot. I don't know how those people can live there. It was really deep.
We have no choice.
Okay, but anyway, what is that little, where is that coming, where does that water come from that was coming into that area by that tennis court? Is that part of this Nova thing, or where does it come from? Where is it draining? Do you know? Anybody?
I don't know off the top of my head. It may be part of a state thing, but they can answer that.
Okay, so the man who lives across the street from me told me he has talked to the city several times about that, and nothing has happened. And like I said, he flooded again too. Not as bad as the last one, but I think that really did contribute, because the pond, like you said, you guys drained it enough that I felt comfortable, but I believe the water was coming from another spot, that area. And the thing about people driving through, that street, Miles Drive, is a cut through from Nova to Taylor. Okay, sorry. People going through on big trucks, pushing the water into your
It's a
yard.
huge problem.
Thank you. Mike Pelinich. Did I say it right?
Hi, good evening. My name is Mike Palahach, Sugar Forest Subdivision. I appreciate my other Sugar Forest folks here. Same issues, just different time. We've been here for 30 years, and same as so many people here. In the last two years, this is where all the problems came. I work for a builder, so I understand a lot of the stuff here and the impervious areas with the concrete and so forth. Yes, my big concern was the Port Orange stables. They looks great. The culverts that are coming in are off of Madeline, where they did the drainage there. Perfect. Pushed water through, great. However, once it hits Jackson to going towards Sugar House Drive, that hasn't been maintained for a long time. What I noticed after the storm, coming out at Sugar House Drive in Madeline, water coming off of Madeline into dumping right back into Sugar House Drive. So there's probably an issue with the culvert that's there. Maybe it's too small, maybe something's blocking it, but there must have been about a 4-inch difference from the west side to the east side. So something stopped that water and forced it into the neighborhood. That was one issue. The other thing would be the working for the builder that I do in New Smyrna Beach. Sometimes we have to demo homes and build a new one for homeowners. New Smyrna Beach made us, in a lot of cases, put a retention pond into the back of these new homes to help create your drainage flow. I don't think we do that here. We might, but I don't see it anywhere.
We do.
I am scared to death when they build these homes behind Sugar Mill Elementary. I know they already get fill there, a lot of it already, so obviously that's a problem. So Sugar Forest Subdivision, we are in a pond, we are in a bowl. You have made that bowl bigger on the storage building side, and and it's going to be a lot bigger on where these 200 and some homes are going to be at. I'm scared to death when that happens. I know you're doing the pump station. That's going to be there. That's going to be great. However, I'm afraid that nothing's going to be done with that Madeline Canal there. I mean, it's only like 2.5 feet deep or so. I haven't seen it being dredged. I think that needs to be dredged out and looked at all these these culverts that are there and underneath the ground there. I think they're well inadequate. My fear is you're going to say, hey, 2-3 years, we're going to take care of this pump station there. And let's not worry about that retention area, because so much of that water for our subdivisions coming right off of Madeline, coming across and into our subdivision.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
We got Lori Becker.
Hello, Lori Becker. I live at 865 Christie Drive. I live in the Sugar Mill and Forest community. Yay for all you people that flooded, right? Yeah. All right. So we flooded twice, severely. Okay, you guys are familiar with that, right? Mm-hmm. And are you familiar with the public storage building on the corner of Nova and Madeline? It's 3 stories, looks like a jail. It's pretty easy to tell. Okay, why would you build that before you build the retention ponds? Why would you do that? You know that Madeline Commons is coming because I stood up here and fought against it, okay? So why would you do that? Why would you build public storage and then build Madeline Commons, which is now ready to get concrete and asphalt, by the way, before you build the retention ponds? I'm sorry, spring is not soon enough next year, okay? We can't afford that. We need drainage now. Spring or summer, whatever, will not be spring or summer. It will be fall. It will be hurricane season again. You don't want to see Sugar Forest go through this again. It's unacceptable. Your timeline is unacceptable. We had community meetings about this. You agreed to put retention ponds in before Ian. Where are they? We need to have drainage. You know how many homes flood in Sugar Forest and behind Sugar Forest, which is my home? Right here, okay? We can't take it anymore. $150,000 in insurance claims, I can't do it anymore. Please, get a backhoe, dig the hole, get it done. I'm not asking for a lot here. We are all in desperate need. And the other thing is, okay, we talked about the building. Enough with the building. Madeline Commons is going to put in 150 homes. What are we going to do? We are a bowl. We are a bowl. If you don't get these retention ponds built, we're going to continue. What are you going to do then? Take our homes? FEMA going to take our homes? Because if you flood more than 3 times in 10 years, you're going to take our homes. All right? Yeah. So where does that leave us and all these people on Herbert Street on the east side of Port Orange, which I know you are a resident of, okay? You know, east side of Port Orange, the ones that are the last to get the garbage picked up, you know? All right? So pay attention to us, please. Pay attention to us. You can't just slap 150 homes in and promise us retention ponds and not build them on the second storm now. Let's move along. And please, come into our neighborhoods and tell us you care. Come into our neighborhoods, put your boots on the ground, walk the walk, and tell us you care. All right? Thank you.
Tina Schulte. Tina Schulte. Clara Street.
Tina Schulte at Clara Street. I came before you a year ago regarding the massive size parking lot that Giuseppe's had to have, that they have used twice, by the way. Twice. They have no need for it. And all they've done is taken our wetlands, just like everything else that you have permitted and signed off on. So this stormwater management program is intended to work the other direction. So you plan for the future, which you're not doing. Why? Why are you building and then trying to plan? See, stormwater works like that. That is the way the stormwater program is intended, is to plan for the future, then you build. But not take away the wetlands. My neighborhood on Clara Street, 7 houses, we all flooded. I flood when it rains. When you guys decided to say it's okay for Circle K to go up 2 more feet, Cumberland gas station get put in. Don't forget the car wash. Don't forget Giuseppe's, because you know they have money. They bring in so much money for this city. But my cheap $110,000 house doesn't mean squat to you guys. That's my home. It might be old. It's from 1956. Still standing, by the way, barely. Because it's only flooded twice. Which has been in our family for the 3 generations, by the way. Every house on Clara Street, actually. Along with the property the truck stop was on that Giuseppe's took over. Nothing flooded when Grandpa Carl had the truck stop, the restaurant. Nothing did. And he could not build without a retention pond, by the way. He was told no. Accountability. Where's your accountability to this county, this community, and these people? That's what you need, is accountability.
Yvonne Kiss.
Hi, my name's Yvonne Kiss. I'm the HOA president for Sunrise Oaks. I have been in front of you guys several times. Mayor, I've walked the B19 with you and some swells. To educate the city manager, I just want to let you know that the B19 last week was flowing backwards. So I don't know if you've walked that, but we have issues with our ponds overflowing, our streets overflowing. In Ian, we had 4 homes flood. I do not know what has flooded for Ian yet. I haven't gotten that report. We have our meeting on Thursday, so I'll find that out, that information. One of my concerns is building like everybody else. I look at that City of Port Orange emblem and it kills me, because that should be the city of either extra storage or the city of a car wash. On Madeline and Williamson, we have 870 apartments coming within the next 2 years. So the B19 is already fragile, like you had mentioned, and now we have those apartments coming in. So what's going to be done before those apartments are built if we're already having issues with the B19? So I hope somebody can give us an answer for that, because if we're already flooding now and we already have issues now, what are 870 apartments going to do to the B19? I have walked and talked with you about the B19 before Ian. We have reached out to the county because we were told it's the county property. Nothing has been done over the last 3 years. You have nice presentation and PowerPoints, but nothing's been done in 3 years before Ian and before Milton. So I hope, and my prayer here is that you guys listen to your community, because we are suffering and nobody's doing anything about it. And it's sad. I have moved here 25 years ago. I raised my kids here, and now my grandchildren are here. And I hate to move them because all of them have homes here as well. And two of them flooded, one lost a roof, thank goodness. I didn't flood, but my house is sinking. I just had alpha foundations out at my house because I need to put stilts in the ground to hold my house up. Even though I didn't flood, the sand around my home, because of the pond behind my yard and the water in my streets, makes a moat around my yard. Not a cheap thing to fix, and I only had to do one corner of my home, and that was $30,000. So I hope that you guys in this council is listening to the residents of Port Orange. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. James Kerrigan.
My name's James Kerrigan. I live at 842 Bears Trail, previously known as 1915 Nixon Lane. Bears Trail is my driveway. I live in the area that everybody's talking about, Sugar Forest area. My parents bought the property back in 1974. We never had a flooding issue. Then they built Sugar Forest back in the mid-70s, I think. All of a sudden, we start flooding. Why? Because our drain field was the woods that are now Sugar Forest. Okay? I've noticed from this hurricane, I went out driving around from Madeline, the retention pond that y'all are going to be building, from that area all the way to Dunlawton was underwater in that area. Okay? My house, I've got pictures on my phone. Ian, the water was that far under my doorknob on my front door. On this hurricane, Milton, I've had 2.5 feet of water inside my house. It took me 3 days to be able to get to my house. Okay? My house was the first house built in that location. It was a log cabin. The logs were cut off of that property back in the 50s by Mr. Eddie, who owned all of that property. It's kind of a historical piece of ground. And it sits under 3 feet of water every time we have a hurricane. We never had flooding issues until they started building all these properties up around us. Ours was built ground level because there was no codes back in 1950, whatever, okay? And I know it's not y'all's fault, you know, but we pay y'all. We pay your salaries, okay? I don't live out at Spruce Creek Flying. Is there anybody here from Spruce Creek Flying? Is there anybody here from Sterling Chase? Is there anybody here from any of those other communities that you have to have like 7 digits to live in? Okay, we're all working class. We all bust our butts for a living, okay? I can't afford to rebuild my house again. I'm collecting the insurance check and I'm out of here, okay? My mother has lost so much stuff in her life in that house. I've had to rebuild the house now twice since it's basically become in my possession. Okay, I'm 57 years old. I can't keep doing this. Okay, I mean, there has to be something done. And the way that I see it, for my neighborhood, there's no way for y'all to fix it. Because you've put this new subdivision in and you've put in the new storage buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Randall Brett.
Thank you, Derek.
I'm Randy Brett. I live at 450 Merrimack Drive, Orange, the Woods subdivision, and we were flooded again this time. We were flooded in Ian, we was flooded in Nicole, and when Charlie, Francis, Gene, and Ivan all come through, it got very close then. All those corrections that we've made back there where the old fire station used to be, we call it the Cambridge Basin Catch Pond now. And I understand and I appreciate all the explanation about what went wrong and what has happened, but we just keep getting flooded. And I hear that it's going to be now even another year later before we get a permanent fix. And I know you guys did everything you could to give us a temporary fix, but we need a permanent fix. And we need it fast, because it's going to happen to us again. And we need for that dam to be raised up about 2 or 3 feet so that that Rose Bay does not come back in on us again, because that's what's causing our flooding, is it's coming in on us. Now I'm going to say something that's probably not going to make anybody in this room happy. We just floated a big, gigantic bond to do something to play ball. Take that money and fix our flooding issues. Please, please take that money and do something different with it. I know that our kids need to play ball, but we need to be able to live. So please take that money and fix our problem.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, Wolf Unger. Wolf Unger.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Edgewater, and they've got their own problems right now, and I'll be at that city council meeting. My daughter, my son-in-law, and my 4 grandchildren live at 937 Tall Pine, and they have put everything they have into building that home for my grandchildren. They moved there about 10 years ago, and like so many who have talked to you already up here, so many people I've talked to in the neighborhoods around here, because I am an Xactimate estimator for construction companies and insurance claims. So those of you who know what Xactimate is, you'll understand what I do. The real issue comes down to what is the priority in this community. In any community, we have the priority of clean water supply, fire protection, police protection, and stormwater. And any one of those can cause a community to disintegrate if they're not properly handled. My daughter's house had never flooded prior to Ian. That's the thread you're all hearing from people. Okay, so something's changed. Yep, it's the higher subdivisions. It's the lack of planning on retention ponds that aren't deep enough. Okay. Pumping systems that don't have backup generators, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The first estimate I did for my daughter's house on Ian was $109,000 without contents. This one will be a little less. She is blessed that she goes to a church that has people who come and they've helped cut the drywall. I do the insulation, I do the mold early remediation because I'm certified in mold assessment and remediation. And we're going to replace the dishwasher, the bedding, the carpeting, the couches, the washing machine, the dryer, you name it. It's all got to be replaced every time this happens. And you would just be absolutely shocked to understand that most people can't do that twice. They don't have the money. They tried to get flood insurance. It was too expensive for them. He's an accountant, so he's not rich, but he makes a decent amount of money. He couldn't afford the flood insurance. Here's what needs to happen. You, as the leaders of this community, need to go into neutral, redirect your efforts toward stabilizing the safety of this community by focusing on stormwater and making that your only priority for the next couple of years. You have the sporting complex, you have everything else you need to make this city such a wonderful little city, but if people can't live in their homes, you're going to end up being a has-been city.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wolf.
Jake O'Brien.
Hi, yeah, I'm Jake O'Brien. I live at 222 Brittany Ave, just off of Spruce Creek. So I'm at Avon and Brittany. So just a street over from North Brighton, where I believe, I think he left, but Mr. Austin, the veteran, lives. I walked by his house this morning, and I believe, was it Cindy? I walked to your house this morning. I wanted to, and I think you arrived right after I walked back. The pile of debris in front of her home is higher than the berm that is used to block the water incoming for storm surges. So, I mean, to put it in perspective. So, yeah, just walking through the community, I have a neighbor who got taken for a ride in the last storm, and he has no drywall since Ian, and he doesn't have the means to get it back, to put it back. So he flooded again. I have another neighbor who just happens to not flood, likely because of the way their yard slopes. But every neighbor I'm talking to is, we can't do this again. We're leaving. Everyone in my neighborhood that I've talked to. And I just want to take an aside, and I don't mean to insult anyone's intelligence here. I just want to bring it back to a couple things that I had talked to a friend about. A good friend of mine, he plays baseball, and so he plays at All Children's Park, those fields in the back, and there's that concession stand that's getting rebuilt. Happened to catch a contractor who was just standing there, and he's like, how are things going? He's like, well, we're waiting on word from the city to build. Do you have an idea of how long it'll take when you do get the word? No. So that building, that project likely will be more than $500,000, and this building is no bigger than anyone's house here. And if neither the city or the contractor can answer simple questions about something small like that amendment we voted on about bonds for park projects, if you want to ask to borrow money, $30 million, I mean, there's already a level of irresponsibility with what's being allocated and where it's being allocated that I don't understand why that passed, but it did. And I'll just say this. The parks are only good if there's people here. If there's a generation, the next generation that lives here, the generation in their golden years just trying to enjoy the last bits of life.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Jackie Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jacob. I live on Merrimack Drive in the Wood subdivision. We moved here in '95, have loved the community, the schools, you know, the whole environment and everything. We flooded in '04. We flooded with Ian. We flooded with Milton. For us, Ian was the worst. We had so much rain, and so many of my neighbors, if you had gone down, it looked like a war zone, because everybody's life is on the side of the curb. You know, we weren't the only ones, and everybody was in the same boat. And it took days to get into our neighborhood because there was so much water. And we had that again with Ian. We didn't flood quite as much, but it was still a lot of damage. Now, I don't know if anybody visits our neighborhoods throughout Port Orange to really see what everybody's going through on a daily basis of trying to, you can't wait for someone to come in from the insurance company or contractors. Everybody's getting their drywall out themselves. They're pulling everything out that they can to mitigate the damage so that you can start to repair what you can and hope that insurance will help you so you're not having to take out loans again to repair and replace everything. And I know in our subdivision, it's worse, I think, in the front half, but with Ian, it was everybody, and it was so sad. This time it seems like some people did a little better, but I know it was rough for us, and I've seen many of my neighbors with all their stuff out on the curb again. After '04, because we're right next to the children's park, they actually came in as from the city and they bought the homes because so many people did not want to try again. We're almost at that point. I don't want to give up our home, but I can't see us putting it on the market and anybody wanting to buy a home that's flooded this many times, because it's hard to keep coming back and rebuilding again. And I don't know if the city plans to do something similar or how that works. Don't really want that to happen, but I don't know if the improvements will happen soon enough that it makes it worth risking having to do this again in another year or two. And I don't, it's sad for a lot of us, because a lot of us feel the same way. It's how many times can you keep coming back and dealing with the same issues? So I don't know what the answer is. We all hope that the city improvements for the water drainage will work. Obviously, I know Mother Nature, there's not much we can do, but, if you can come out and make yourself known in the community so we know that y'all are aware and care, that would be good to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael McClure.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Mike McClure. I live at 5888 Trailwood Drive. I've been there for over 47 years. Mr. Clark, if you want some information about how the water flows, I've been through every one of them. The biggest problem started in Hurricane Francis when they tried to let that lake down, and they let it down so fast it washed away the sides of the canal itself. And then they decided to put concrete blocks in, which is a good idea, except when they were building it, P&S Paving, a guy by the name of Chad was in charge of the job. He would put 2 dirt piles into the top of the thing, put pumps behind it from Thompson pump the water past it so they could get in there and work. I told him, if it rains hard, that dirt isn't going to hold. He said, "No, we packed that thing in there, it's tight." He came back the next day, all the water is in the lake. You don't understand how much water flows through there. You don't get a clue. I've been there, I built my own house in 1976. I worked for Jerry Johnson, and Jerry, through Ted Mead, was the contractor. I built some of those houses in that area. I'm here not because my house flooded, because I built it 2 foot higher than what the city required. In 1990, I put my out garage the height of the grade, which I had a permit for. And if you can't hold up to a permit that city has given you to last more than 20 years, gentlemen, it isn't your fault. The planning commission did a lousy job. And I don't blame you, but you got a monumental task ahead. The Cambridge Basin Canal was built by George Scott and his underground back in the late 70s. And it was made to go to Taylor Road. That's it. Took Devon all the way down, straight out through 2 4-foot culvert pipes at the railroad tracks. It worked. I didn't have to have flood insurance from 76 to 93 because I wasn't in the flood zone. Infinite wisdom of the planning commission. Let's build Foxborough. We'll give them the permission. We can do that. We'll just shoot right underneath Taylor Road and put big culvert pipes in and let it go down. Nothing happened on the outsource. It still had 2 big pipes. The edges of it, once it hits the railroad tracks, some of it goes into Rose Bay easily. But what they don't understand, when we fought for Central Park, Foster Coleman wanted to build 500 homes per acre. That's way too much building in there. We fought it, the city commission saw it, and they did it. The water behind there that hits that rail tracks goes two directions. Some of it goes down to Spruce Creek, some of it comes down to Rose Bay. If you're gonna put that pipe in, and it goes straight, you're gonna take a left-hand turn and head east, go around the block and put it in the woods. Because when you built that pond, not only did you put all that water there, you took all our wind barrier. Okay? That water come up so high, it floods everything. And when wind lays down and starts coming from the northwest, we get 8 inches. Now, I'll tell you how I know it. 8 inches of extra water when it blows past the little bit of houses that are there and into everybody else's lot.
Thank you, Mike.
The reason why it does, and you can say that, as soon as the storm stopped at 8 o'clock, winds down, you can see the water going back. You couldn't have been pumping it that fast. Right now, the height of the lake is too high because I'm still wet. And you don't pump it down enough. The only person that listened to me was Lynn Stevens of Public Works. I don't know if she's still here or not, but I give her kudos because I told her you need to keep that level of that lake down or people are going to flood. I'm here from my neighbors. I've been in business here for 40 years, manufacturing company with partners. And I love Port Orange, but I certainly don't want to take anything away from you. But you failed on Ian. And what I mean by you failed on Ian, you put sandbags up there, and I understand why. You pumped it down too fast. The height of Roe Bay was too high, and it breached and came in my yard. I had so much salt water it killed every worm in my yard, and it stunk. Now you take and you put all these sandbags up there. It's been 2 years and nothing has happened to improve that. 2 years. Went through the last hurricane season. Jim Ward, 2 houses down, used to be a mayor of the city. He lived there. His house flooded. His house is in it again.
Thank you, Mike.
That property, you added Foxborough. Foxborough goes in there. Then you added Countryside. And these things called retention ponds are that cup of water that you talked about, sitting right there, and it pours.
Mike, I need you to wrap up.
One more second.
No, that's fine. I just need you to wrap up because I want to hear from everybody.
Okay, one second.
Okay.
We can stand 15 inches of water on Trailwood Drive. We just can't stand everybody else's 15 inches of water on our property. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nancy Niatubi, I'm sorry, on Crane Court. I know I botched that, didn't I?
Nitubik. We're both technically Nitubik, but I'm coming with her too.
Nancy Niatubich, 725 Crane Court, Sleepy Hollow. 2 years ago was the first time I see water in my house. I was told, oh, this is never going to happen again, so I didn't worry about it. I mean, the way it was. I've been living in the house for 40 years. Never before it happens like that. I used to own a cleaners, and if something breaks, I fix it. I don't wait 2 years, I don't wait 3 years to fix it. But you know why? Because if I didn't fix it, I didn't get no money. But you guys, I have a question. Which one of you flooded this time, or the time before? You flooded. So you know what we're going through. Did you flood it again this year?
Yeah, not as bad, but my dad is out of his house again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you know what we're going through.
Yep.
You know what we're going through. We're supposed to live in a house that is not flooded zone. We're not supposed to flood. So something is going wrong. Something is going wrong. Something needs to be done. I see my house. I see it's a river. It's like an ocean coming from behind my house. I never see that like that, so something needs to be done. You know, we cannot wait another 2 years and be here again and talk again and you listening and nothing be done. Something needs to be done.
I was not near as bad as you, but I had water in my house.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
there's a
and my
difference
dad-
between water.
My dad flooded 2 years ago horrendously, and he flooded again horrendously.
But yeah,
I know what you
Ready to move.
But look,
I
there's
get
a
you.
difference between water and there's a difference between 2 feet of water in your house. I mean, it must be very fortunate to not have your 15-month-old son almost drown in Ian. That's when we flooded. That's when we left. That's when we evacuated. Must be nice to not have to call your 93-year-old neighbor at 5 in the morning to make sure they're up, to make sure they're not drowning. Some things that I took away from your presentation was, why didn't we have the backups? Why is there no generators? Why is there, like the other person said, the one system? You know, why did we not take care of that? And then, you know, I don't know his name, I'm sorry, Donald, sorry. But you made sure that, oh, the state didn't, they only cleaned it. You know, why are we talking about that now? Ian happened 2 years ago. Why are we only talking now that the state only cleaned it and they didn't do anything for 2 years if it's the state's problem? I just see that we're passing the buck. And then on top of that, you know how many people I saw, we had to get permits to fix everything for Ian. You know how many people I saw inspectors come, spend 10 seconds in my house? But cool, we paid for the permits, we paid for the inspections, and did anybody inspect anything? You can see light coming from the outside. From inside the house, you can see light from the outside because no one inspected anything. You guys got your money, everyone got paid. That's what mattered. On top of that, I just want you guys to know that, you know, like my mom said, she spent her entire life, 40 years in this house. What is she gonna do? She's 73 years old, our neighbor's 93 years old. Everybody on our street flooded. No one has come to talk to us about anything. Not one person has stopped to talk to her. Thank you.
I have just one little more things. When I first moved over there, and people used to tell me, we have somebody from the city living on a Sleepy Hollow. And I cannot believe that because we were the first one we liked, we were the first one to pick up the garbage, we never flooded. Now we are the last one for everything.
Is it Bill Cobbinger? 51 East Bay Shore?
How you doing? I'm Bill Coppage, 51 East Bay Shore. I'm on the east side with the poor structure that was on the presentation. Born and raised 50 years right here, Port Orange, and I've seen a lot. Like they're all talking about the old McDonald farm on Sauls Road, near Sauls Road right there being developed, you know, all the way over Boater. Put the big bilge pump pumping into the bay, and that scares me half to death because I was this close to flooding this time. You guys got a hard sell, no doubt, no doubt. Well, my question is who's approving all this? I mean, like, if you look at the floodplain from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the flood elevation, you know, who's in the flood zone, who's not, to now, it's turned 180 degrees. I mean, everybody else that wasn't in a flood zone then is now in a flood zone. So, you know, like, you're talking about pumping in here and pumping in there. Well, why don't we stop the building for right now? Like, let's just stop the, let's just take it, like we said, just take a little time just to reassess what's going on and where the water is going. Because if you have a bilge pump, and this is from me being an offshore fisherman, if you're offshore and you got one bilge pump and it goes out, guess what? You're sunk. I mean, like, it's a pretty simple equation. Right now I live on a B23 canal, which is not even mentioned in your thing. We just dredged that in 2010. Mm-hmm. We had oak trees flowing down that bad boy from all the runoff going. It's crazy. Everybody south of me on my road had flood waters up to their window ledges. Anymore, within 3 foot in the house. I know what those people are feeling. Not just that, but I go up, the city, the Riverwalk, right up there on US 1. Right across the street, there's this huge condominium complex. After the hurricane passed, my buddy, 3 houses down, was like, whew, I only got a couple inches. He's in there all night vacuuming. The next day we come out, there is water coming out of his sewer pipe this tall, flowing high, sewer water in his house. Like, we don't have the infrastructure to support. I mean, I know we got people moving here every day, but we have to really realize you can't kill everybody living here now and have been here for 50 years for the new people coming in. Like, That's why our house prices are down. Our home prices are down in Volusia County compared to the rest of the country. We're the last ones that have this. So we need to really look at these people before we stamp that stamp and say, go ahead and build, what's going on here? Let's get a drainage fixed, So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Christopher Maggio.
My name is Christopher Maggio. I live on 916 5th Street. I've seen the road flood on the street where I live at. Right across the street from me, they're building 150 houses. My concern is my neighbors behind me, wonderful people. We all look out for one another there. Elderly lady, Dot, had to move out of her home because she got flooded out of her home there. This housing project across the street there concerns me because their road didn't flood. My road did. And if they put all those cement slabs there, is that going to cause my house to be in a flood zone now also? Not only that, the people behind me are going to be even deeper in water. That's my biggest concern for that area in the community. That's the only thing I really have to talk about. Everybody's spoken how they feel about how everything's happening. I know you can't control the weather, you can't control unforeseen circumstances, but you can avoid problems by preparing better drainage, maybe better situations to make it less of an issue for others in the area. That's all I have to say.
Thanks.
Thank you. Kevin Stevenson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Kevin Stevenson. I live in Sleepy Hollow on Raven Rock Court. I am a 100% permanent and total disabled veteran. I've served in the U.S. Army as a combat medic. Now, folks, I want to tell you about what happened at my house over on Raven Rock, because it is a low-lying area. So at 1 a.m. I woke up to use the restroom. The floor was dry, no problems. Checked every orifice that I have because I put sandbags at every place. I was diligent about everything that I did, rest assured. Now 3:30 comes around, I wake up again, and I am in ankle-high water in my house. In a matter of 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours, I got about 4.5 inches of rain. Now, I'm going to paint the picture further for you folks. I have 7 children, 6 dogs, and 3 cats, and my lovely wife. Now, we all had to hunker down in our new home that we just bought in May, on our brand new couch that we just bought 3 days prior. We are all hunkered down on this couch. Now, I'm a student of assess the situation and see if we can move on and move forward. Well, I got what little I could put on, which was a bathing suit and some old shoes, and I went outside to assess the situation. When I got to the end of my driveway, I was in over waist deep water. Now, mind you, I'm looking at the drainage ditches and nothing is draining. Wow, surprise to me. So I had to make the executive decision over the next couple of hours to evacuate my wife and children. Now I want to back up because this day, October 10th, is my son's 3rd birthday, my youngest son's 3rd birthday. We tried to sing happy birthday to him to make him feel better about this nasty situation going on, to which he immediately said to all of us, "No, I don't like this happy birthday," which broke all of our hearts. Now, rest assured, folks, I am a student of hurry up and wait, and I know what it's like. And I have seen this hurry up and wait nonsense with this, I'm going to rebuild this back better of this whole drainage situation, which you're not. So I have gone forth and I have contacted Congressman Mills's office. And I had the pleasure of speaking with District Director Amy Dunn today, who is also tracking the situation, who is keeping Congressman Mills abreast of this situation. So I am here to let you know that he's tracking the situation. I want to end off like this. I'm in the military. I have some years. I know what vehicles look like in the air. I'm going to go over my time for a second, so I want you to be aware of that. When I'm out there after the storm had hit, a mere couple of hours when the storm went away, I look up in the sky. I see not one, not two, but 3 V-22 Ospreys, U.S. Navy Ospreys, circling the AO, looking at the damage. Now, Mr. Mayor, I know you don't have the power to put an Osprey up in the air. That's not your call. That's the governor's call, because as soon as they were done, they made a beeline right for the Mike Pence Space Force base. So you tell me who put those bad boys up in the air to look at the damage and assess that it is a disaster area. And they know fully well that it's a disaster area, sir. So we're going to keep going forward. I'm going to keep contacting and pestering the heck out of Congressman Mills until we get him here boots on ground to see what's going on. Because I am a disabled dad who stays at home all day with his kids, and I got nothing better to do, gentlemen. So rest assured, I'm going to be the thorn in your side. I'm going to be the thorn in his side. We're going to get something done. And guess what? We're going to play a FAFO game of follow the money. You guys have a great night. Thank you.
Kat Atwood. And Cheryl Ransom. And I was going to, Dawn Evans. Where'd she go? Oh, here she goes.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. I would also like to congratulate all of you for utterly failing your city. Your city, not just our city. It's yours too. I would like to know how many of y'all's houses flooded. I want honest answers. Gentlemen, anybody's house flood? No?
Mine didn't flood.
No, okay. All these people, these are not just, they're not my neighbors on my road, but they are all still my neighbors. Every one of them has lost something. I'm tired. I broke my hand doing this, trying to clean up, because my 71-year-old mother broke her shoulder. I want to know what you guys are doing. I know everybody says we're building new and they're doing infrastructure, and I get that. Where does new infrastructure tie into? Old infrastructure. What are we doing about that? You, sir, not personally, but your job, you're a joke. I hate to say that, I really do, but you are. I can do the same PowerPoints you do. I'm pulling them up off the state website every day of the week. I can make them better. Mr. Jones, Mr. Bastian, not the time to be silent. You guys have sat here all night. I don't know if you're working. I don't know if you're even interested. You're just sitting there and you've said nothing. Mr. Stone, you're great. I kind of like you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, no offense, sir. I am so glad you're going. I am so glad. You have done nothing but sell this city out at the cost of a lot of people who can't afford to buy new. I've been told by so many friends, move. Where can I move that I can afford? I can't anymore. You're building it up, and you're building it bigger and better, but you're leaving the people who have been here their entire lives. I was born in this county. I was born in Daytona when Halifax was 3 stories. I've never seen this, ever, a day of my life. I might go over, I'm watching, sorry guys. What was it? Not Ian, the F hurricane, way back. Francis. We started flooding then. Couple of inches, not a big deal. We can do this. Ian, 2 foot. Milton, over 2 foot. And it just keeps coming. Please stop. Please, I beg you guys, do something. I'm going over. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay.
Do something. I'm tired. These people are tired. And a lot of them, if you look at these faces out here, a lot of them are retired. They can't afford it anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tondalea Courier.
Hello, thank you for letting us speak. I live at 105 Kent Court, so I'm in the Cambridge area on a cul-de-sac. I moved there.
I'm sorry, which street?
Kent Court.
Kent Court.
Kent
There's
Court.
only 3 of us on that street.
I understand.
I moved there so that my daughters could go to a good school in a good area. I really love Port Orange. My daughter will be graduating this year, and we got some of our, we got her back in the home from Ian. We only moved back into the house, and it's not even finished, about 3 weeks ago. Got her house, her bedroom ready and everything, because homecoming and Christmas and nothing's been normal for her. This is her senior year, and she got ready for homecoming just to turn around and have her bedroom destroyed again, and we're starting all over. No privacy, no sleepovers and fun and all the things that kids should be allowed to have. One of the reasons I moved here in the first place. But since then, we've been through both of these storms. Our house flooded both times. Like I said, we were barely in there for 3 weeks, and it's not finished, and now it's completely torn up. We're right back where we started out at. We're worried about safety measures. We flood in our backyard, and there is an electric pole with the electricity in the middle of that water. Down the street, there is a man cover that was bubbling with sewage. I had human waste in my house when we came back after everything flowed out, so everything has to be torn out. We can't keep any of it. Like I said, right back where we started, still fighting insurance companies to even get money to finish our house, greatly in debt from the money I put out to put a new roof on the house to keep us safe in the meantime. There's also mold growing in most of all of our homes. I think some people are just so new to the neighborhood, they don't even know what's in their walls, and they're gonna leave it and get even sicker. We've been through it, thank God, once before, so we know that there is mold, and we know that we gotta get everything out. The safety of the fact of all the debris we have luckily we had everything torn out quickly, but that means there's a gigantic pile of our stuff and our drywall, things like that. People are looting, they're coming and digging through your stuff. You know, in the middle of the night, we've had strangers, it's just me and my girls, and we've had people come and dig through our trash and take knives to our couches to see if we have something wonderful in them. So it's a safety issue in many different ways. Having that trash there for that long of a time on top of all the other issues. Like I said, there's still standing water in our backyards. The sewer water, I've got 2 dogs, I'm trying to keep them out of that area. Like I said, I can't keep the floors because of what happened. There's just a lot of concerns of this ever happening again, and like everybody here, I can't afford to move to another place and pay what I do now and be able to do it on my single salary, and to have a normal year for my daughter in her senior year, and just I'm sure it weighs on everybody, and it's a lot of work. So I appreciate you listening to us.
Thank you. Robin, do you have any more? Okay. Council comments, start with Drew.
I don't even know where to start, because it has happened twice in 2 years, and Mother Nature, of course, is undefeated, and there's no matter what project we do, or is done long after I'm gone, and the next council sits here, whatever projects we do, I just feel like Mother Nature is going to win there too eventually, at some point. So I'm not a predictor of weather, but I know it's a horrible thing. My house did not flood. We lost some shingles, have a leak over had a leak over the garage, and lost some drywall, but I didn't take water in my house. So I did have damage. It wasn't significant, and I feel your pain, but I honestly don't know how I can fix it. But we work together up here. It's difficult. Property that is being developed. I mean, we've been over this before. You had Scott gave a great presentation a few months back. property that's available and property owners have rights and they get to develop it, and often we will sit up here and try to minimize the impact, ask for less residences, try to make, things better. You can't stop them, you try to minimize the impact. It's very difficult to say, no, you can't build this when they're within their rights and they're building inside the development orders and the land development code. It's a difficult thing to stop. You just can't come up here and say, no, you can't build anything.
But
Hang on. Who owns wetlands? Because that's where it's being built out. Doesn't the county or city?
I didn't.
Own the thing, wetland. You're building up on the wetlands, and that's where the water's not going because it's concrete. You're building on wetlands that were supposed to be here to take on the water, and you're flooding everybody out because you keep on allowing the buildings.
Drew, finish your thought, please.
Okay,
We've heard from the public.
Yes.
Finish your thought, Drew. Finish your thought, Drew.
I don't live in New York. I don't know how they stopped building.
Drew.
Yeah.
Drew.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
I bet you if you
Scott?
flood it really bad, you'd feel a lot differently and try to do something.
I didn't, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion though. Can I just ask a question? So for
No.
right after COVID, you guys
Scott,
raised
you're
the
up.
property taxes. Now the values of the houses are going down, especially now in new flooded areas. Why don't you, because you guys were quick to raise property taxes from everybody, why don't you check out the flooded areas and drop property taxes? At least cut us a break. You raised it very quickly. It's just a suggestion.
Scott?
All right, so, I know we had a ton of people here tonight, and I really wish some of them would have kind of stayed around to try to answer some of the questions and put this information out. But if anybody wants to reach out to any of us individually, all of our information is right there on the city website. So please, if you have very specific stuff, if we don't have the answers, and a lot of times we don't have all those answers, then we will get the staff members or the appropriate people through the city manager's office to reach out and have those discussions and provide that data and that information. A couple of things that were talked about tonight, no specific order, but I just kind of want to touch on them for those of you that are still here. The FEMA debris removal process, it's horrific. It's not friendly to any community anywhere in the United States that has to go through processes like this. But it's their process. And what happens is on this, and I want to be clear on this because we get this question a lot and it's a source of frustration. It's going to get more frustrating. And, first of all, I'm a guy who really believes in telling you the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth, right? No matter how painful it is, no matter how crappy it is, I'm going to try to do my best to tell you the truth about this stuff. The FEMA process is complex, it's convoluted, and it comes from decades of people, other states and areas taking advantage of the FEMA dollars. So that process and debris removal, which a few of you talked about how the debris is stacked up in front of homes and it's going to be there and it creates that. We agree. We don't disagree with that. We are going to spend your money to have stuff removed from this community and cleaned up. The only way we get your money back is to adhere to that exact process. Not our process, not the process that might seem common sense to all of us, but it has to be done that way. So just all I'm saying is keep that in mind because that's your money that we can try to get back and continue. By the way, that's the money we utilize to put towards these flood mitigation projects. And we have done that for years, okay? So just keep in mind that process is complex. It's the federal government's process. It has to be done that way or we cannot get your tax dollars back in order to put those towards more flood mitigation projects. FEMA, some folks have asked about the flood zones. I'm in a flood zone, then I'm not in a flood zone. I bought a house that wasn't in a flood zone, now it's in a flood zone. We don't determine flood zones. Flood zones is determined by the federal government. FEMA determines what a flood zone is, what the flood zone designation. If you go to the FEMA's website, I believe it's FEMA.gov, they have an entire thing that you can read on there about how flood zones are determined, what it represents, what it means in that. But that's not determined by municipal government, county government, or even state government. So that is actually done by the federal government.
Scott, while you're on this subject of flood zone, flood zone X is a flood zone. There is no part of the city that's not in a flood zone. Flood zone X is the least likely to flood based on FEMA's projections. It is also the cheapest zone to get flood insurance for. I think it's $541 a year. But
Ever since you guys did your thing, now it's double. And I'm in X, and now I have to spend $1,100 for flooding.
the zone, yeah, it's based on, the feds changed that based on flood performance and flood history. But the point I'm trying to make is that an X zone is a flood zone. There is no part of the city that's not in a flood zone. Some are greater, some are lesser risk, but the entire city is in a flood zone. Scott, go ahead, please.
So the city, for years, we have tried to work continuously on flood mitigation and flood mitigation projects. I know sometimes that doesn't seem like that, because in years where we're not having storms or we're not having these kind of events, and we've gone sometimes many years without them, and then all of a sudden we get them in bunches. But that is a continual process, and I will tell you that we consistently go to Tallahassee with what they call shovel-ready projects. We have long heard out of Tallahassee that if a city in the state of Florida is coming to Tallahassee to try to get grants and trying to do these flood mitigation projects, you have to come there with things that are shovel-ready, which means we pay for the study, we pay for the design, we get the concept together, and then we go to Tallahassee and we present these projects, and we ask our state legislators and the governor's office as they pass out grant dollars all around the state for that stuff. We do that. We have had success with that. Last year, unfortunately, on the heels of Ian, we took 2 flood mitigation projects to Tallahassee. Neither one of them got funded. One of the things that you guys can do to help us is you have got to read the one gentleman talked about, Congressman Mills. I love it. That's great. The state legislators, your state House representatives, your state senators play a critical role in the process in Tallahassee to help us get dollars out of the state that we can put into these projects. And it's important because so many of these projects, like we talked about earlier in the city manager's briefing, if Port Orange controlled all of this, it would be easier because there would be one entity involved. But so many of these projects involve county properties and county instruments that are involved in flood mitigation, as well as state instruments. You're talking about the Nova Road Canal. I mean, there's a lot of different entities involved, and so the state plays a critical role. And not everybody likes that, but it is the role that they play, and it's part of this process if we're going to be successful. So to bring that full circle, my point to that is help us with that. We talk about these every single year. Every year. Somebody asked, why don't you put this stuff on the website? We do put it on the website. It's put on the website every year. There's a few of you that come to all these meetings that are here all the time when we have them, and they can attest that they do put them on the website. So we do that, and we put that information out there. Help us by reaching out to your state house representatives and your senators and telling them your story, telling them we need their support. We need them to fight for those state dollars to come back. We need to reach out to the governor's office. Reach out to the governor's office and tell them, I live in Port Orange. We've been hit hard by 2 historic storms in 2 years. We need more help here. We have to get those dollars. Because I'm going to tell you folks, we're just like you guys. We live here too. This isn't an us and them. We're here to do our best to be your voices and make decisions. And while they, you got 65, 67,000 people and you make a decision and 45,000 are maybe happy and the rest aren't. That's just how it works. And we get that. We got broad shoulders. We can handle that. But we are you guys, and we need your help when it comes to trying to advocate for those state dollars. So please be attentive to that as much as you can. Reach out to us. We can tell you who to contact, help give you a little script of, hey, we're going to take these projects up. This is what we're asking for, and help us get those projects as much as you can. Just make that, effort if you can do that to help us. A lot of talk about older subdivisions. I'm born and raised here. I'm multi-generational myself. I've seen every storm since 1970. Although the first one I really remember was Hurricane David in 1979. I remember being in Sleepy Hollow with a friend of mine. We built a ramp on our bicycles and we were jumping off the sidewalk into about 2.5 feet of water in the street. So I know, I've seen it. A lot of these subdivisions, when they were built way before 1990-ish or so, where there were no regulations, The state didn't have regulations, the county didn't have regulations, cities didn't have. Sometimes they did something was better than nothing. And then you went through an era of time. And my point to that is a lot of these subdivisions in these older areas of Port Orange, which are important to us, there's no true stormwater infrastructure there, or there's very little. And it is extremely difficult and extremely challenging. Somebody mentioned, how do you hook up new infrastructure to old infrastructure? That's part of the problem, is when there really isn't any old infrastructure that's compatible with new infrastructure. So it's a challenge. It doesn't mean we stop working at it. We do continue to work at it, and that happens all the time. Sugar Forest is a perfect example. I've seen Sugar Forest flood numerous times since 1990. I know. I'm just giving an example for just a second. I've seen Sugar Forest flood in my law enforcement career in the early 90s. I don't remember, it was like 91, 92, somewhere in there around Gordon, I think it was. I was in there in waist deep water with small John boats helping people get out of their houses. I've been in there. I've seen it. I know. The Nova Road Canal is a major problem to that area. It is a horror.
Since 1978. We've never flooded. My mom at 791 Sugarcane Lane. She's never flooded since then.
Let me finish my comments, please. The front of the subdivision definitely flooded. We were in there. Same thing with Springwood and Moonstone Court. And so the Nova Road Canal is a critical part of that happens in that. The other issue is maintenance of the areas. We have a lot of subdivisions in our areas. They basically had functioning HOAs that had their own retention ponds and somewhat of a retention network. They disband their HOAs, and then nobody is taking care of it. And those are problematic to us at all. And those are maybe small things. Admittedly, those are maybe small things, but there's still things that we have to try to work on.
Sir, you guys spoke of Oak and Jackson being a flood area. That's Beacon Woods. October 8th, I have a video on my phone I can show you. Memorial Lake is almost flooded, and the whole canal is already almost flooded 2 days prior to the hurricane even hitting. I called the city several times. I kept on getting transferred and disconnected. Then when I was trying to call to speak to them, to ask them, will you guys at least empty the ditch out? They were leaving messages now. Nobody called me back in 2 days. Nobody came to empty the ditch out. And this is a known flood zone now. I grew up in this house. I was there since
I'm sorry. Let me finish. Okay, because the way this process works.
You guys aren't doing your part. You talk about money instead of doing this. This is a simple.
And you gotta let me finish my comments.
To take out the crepe myrtles and put palm trees. That's not necessary.
It's our turn. Let him finish. Let him. You got to let him finish, please. Thank you.
I'll segue to the crepe myrtles and palm trees. That is part of money that comes out of Tallahassee. That's a state roadway. That's not money that's coming out of flood mitigation banks. That's totally different. Has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with it. If you want, then reach out to the state legislators and tell them you don't want more funding for palm trees, and tell them you want to put that funding into flood mitigation projects around the state. Okay, but that money's not coming out of your flood mitigation your flood dollars. That's not where that's coming from. I don't know where that rumor came from. It's just not true. It's not true. Okay, it's not true. The other thing is we hear people from time to time, and I know it's kind of become the brunt of things, if you will, about car washes and storage units. And I know that's really irrelevant to what we're talking about here tonight, but listen, we don't decide if a property owner who has a piece of commercial property that is zoned for commercial development, we don't decide if that's a car wash, a Giuseppe's Pizza, a storage unit. The property owner decides that. If it fits within the zoning designation, that's what is allowed to go on that property. Now, they can apply for zoning changes. They don't have much success with this council. We typically do not do that. In fact, I'm not aware that this particular current council we have has created a zoning change that increased density. We actually look to change and reduce density. Storage units, while they're not pretty to look at, they don't create a lot of issues in the community. They provide very little traffic. They don't bring traffic into our community. These are things that people have asked for. And the other thing is they build storage units and they build car washes because the demand is there. You go by that car wash on Herbert Street, sometimes the line's out into Herbert Street. People want that, and so a property owner or whoever decided to make that investment, that business investment, and take that risk, they decided that the community wanted that. We didn't decide that. We didn't ask. I've never asked anybody to come build a car wash or a storage unit in this city. Not one single time have I ever done that. land development, and this kind of segues into that, but the state of Florida, we get a lot about, well, stop building, stop letting them building. That's not us. Here's the thing, is in the state of Florida, land ownership has very strong rights for ownership and development. The state of Florida sets development code. If you guys go buy a piece of property, whatever that property is zoned at, and you decide, I've got this idea for a business and it meets that zoning and you can meet the state regulations, the permit will be issued. It legally has to be issued. What New Smyrna did was in a very small area that they identified a developer's infrastructure, he wasn't doing it correctly, they put a temporary stop on that development. They didn't stop all development in New Smyrna. Maybe I misunderstood it, but that's my understanding because I've read those articles as well. They put a very small area out there by Venetian Bay and they put a temporary stop on that, okay? And I think maybe it's expired, but I'm not 100% positive. Anyhow, with regard to that, when people look at that and they say, well, why are they building? We don't build businesses, folks. We don't build them. We have to adhere to property zonings. By the way, all the property in Port Orange, I think since I've been on city council, not one time have I been part of an initial zoning. Not one time. All the property in Port Orange was zoned back in the 80s. They received, if it didn't have a zoning designation, it received what's called an FLU, Future Land Use Zoning Designation. All right, now, this is not my specialty. If you have specific questions about stuff like that, our community development staff can give you information specific to legalities with land ownership and development and building. But in a nutshell, so to speak, that's how that works. That's not up to us. A lot of these businesses you guys see, like I get do we need another Mexican restaurant? Well, I don't know. People keep going to them. Nobody came before. We didn't vote to say, we need a Del Taco. Let's get Del Taco to come put a taco place on Nova Road. We didn't do that. There are property owners who look in the community and they take the risk and they see what do we think is going to work good for our investment. That's how that happens. You guys are the ones that determine that. It's like when a business, a lot of times somebody tries that risk and it doesn't work. It's because the demand wasn't there, and that was decided by the residents of that area. So that's kind of how that works. If you guys have specific things and you want to reach out to me, please do so. My information is right there on the website. I'm happy to try to have those conversations with you. I promise you I won't have all the answers, but I will do my best to get you the information and answer what I can for you. Mayor?
Well, I've got about 100 notes. Wayne, first of all, sandbags were mentioned a bunch of times, and I'd already expressed my disappointment in us not having enough to meet demand. But I do want to point out that we handed out almost 20% more sandbags for this event than we did for Ian. And we had already handed out sandbags for other non-events before that. So 31,000 sandbags were issued in 2 days. And I think for Ian, we issued 25,000 over 4 or 5 days. The demand was higher, but I think the demand was also higher because people saw the need. They saw what was there. So there's absolutely no doubt. That's one of the things we need to do better, no doubt about it. I also know that we're competing with resources with everybody else when there's a lot of things going on, but we've got that's part of the cost of doing business. Permit fees, somebody mentioned that. Wayne, did you already sign the executive order? I know you're going to sign one waiving permit fees for all repairs. What I would like to, I've got more questions than I do, questions create more questions. I know how much water we had and how fast it comes down is also a factor. You can take the hurricanes of 2004, all three of them, put them together, and you'd have to multiply them by 1.5 to get what we had for Ian. And this was similar. It's devastating. But the storms themselves, as much as they are a factor, our ability to get things done, it all plays in. We all need to do better. Therefore, what I want to do is we're going to have to assess everything, and once that assessment is done, I want to make sure that we have a workshop on to follow up on this, where we are after post-Milton, not just on all the projects, but on the rebuilding and everything, so that we have another opportunity for people to come, knowing what's on the agenda, knowing what we're going to discuss and talk about. So we'll talk about when that's appropriate to do, but it's a must, and I've got a feeling that we're going to have more than one workshop. And for the foreseeable future, we need to have a storm update of some sort on every council agenda moving forward for the foreseeable future, as we make sure that we're communicating what we're doing with Milton Recovery and communicating with the other things that we need to communicate with. And I'd appreciate your help with that, and I know we'll be talking about that as well. With that, we've been at it quite a while. I'm going to ask for a 15-minute recess, and then we will continue with the rest of the meeting. We are in recess. And we're back.
Ty Torno.
Citizen Advisory Committee for the TPO, Mr. Bobby Ball. I don't
he
think
here?
he made it this late.
Yeah.
Parks and Rec Advisory Board did not have a quorum, so there's no report from them. That brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting. First reading of ordinance 2024-18. Mr. Attorney, could you read that into the record for me, please?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the First Amendment to the Anglers Cove Plan Unit Development Master Development Agreement to establish a modified definition of a screened enclosure for Lot 4 of the Anglers Cove subdivision, provided for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and providing an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-18.
And I will second that, Mayor.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Wayne, who do we have here?
Tim Berman, Community Development. The proposed amendment is just specifically for the Angler Cove Lot 4 that's located on Beachside next to the Admiralty Club subdivision. This would basically establish the open screen requirement for a screen room. Staff has basically reviewed the MDA amendment and is recommending approval of that requirement for the screen enclosure or screen room to have a 20% open space versus 60%.
Okay. Questions, council?
No.
No, this one's pretty cut and dry, yeah.
Yeah, this is a fix. Would anyone here care to speak to this item? Robert? Come on up.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. When I read this, it says that if the open screen area percentage requirement were a code requirement in the LDC and not a part of the definition, there would have been processed as a variance. So my question, to me, it raises the question of if it's not part of the LDC, a requirement of the LDC, do we have any authority? Does the city have any authority at all to enforce that screen enclosure requirement? Because if it's only part of a definition, and so that's my first concern. And then it later on says that the building plan was reviewed by a third party firm, a review firm, in compliance with the Florida Building Code. And that an assumption was made that a separate permit would have been requested for the screen room, and which was never done. So I think this one raises the question of what are we going to do so that when there are third-party reviews, the staff is going to look at it close enough so that you don't miss this kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Anyone else care to speak to the item? Back to us, council. Final comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3-0. Item 18, the proposer has wished us to continue to November 6th, so I would like a motion to continue item 18, A, B, and C to meeting on November 6th.
Move to approve item 18, or move to...
Move.
So moved.
Yes. Second.
Date certain, November 6th.
Date, second, I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 18 is moved to November 6th. Item 19 is first reading of ordinance number 24-20. Mr. Attorney, could you read that into the record, please?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 20, relating to eligibility for economic development incentives and updating language related to impact fees, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-20.
I'll second. You're out of time, Tim.
I like that. Have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Wayne, who do we have presenting?
Tim Berman, Community Development. As we've done a number of times, this is mainly just a code amendment to clean up some code language in the LDC. First part is some conflicting language we had when we did the adoption of the impact fee ordinances. We just cleaned that up there to make sure it's consistent across the board. The other item is related to kind of the economic development that we're trying to do in the CRAs. Over the past 2 or 3 years, we've basically been doing a lot of building permit fee waivers as part of projects coming in. There were a number of projects that came in maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that basically did not get that opportunity but have established the businesses in the CRA, and we want to provide that opportunity for them to request those fees be refunded then. Again, this is basically an attempt to try to get them to reinvest in properties in the CRA, since these are a number of successful businesses that we have down that area then. So that is what that proposed amendment is for. I'm here for any questions.
Council, questions or comments?
No, no.
There being none, thank you. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? You want to pass on that one, Robert? Back to us. Council, final comments? Call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3-0. Public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. Regular agenda, item 20, first reading of ordinance number 2024-21. Mr. Attorney.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 5, Police Pension Fund, amending Section 54-130, Benefit Level, amending Supplemental Benefit and Cost of Living Adjustment eligibility for certain members, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-21.
And I will second that.
And we have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Wayne, from what I'm reading, this just codifies what, Matt, this just codifies what we've agreed to in negotiations?
Yep, you just saw the contracts last month. This is the formal revision to the pension ordinance to codify that.
Okay. Council comments or questions?
Nope. Nope.
There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3-0. Item 21 is first reading of ordinance number 2024-22. Amendment to Chapter 54, Article 4. For this one is the last one is for police. This one's for fire. Mr. Attorney.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 4, Fire and Rescue Pension Fund, amending Section 5477 definitions, amending the definition of salary, amending Section 5482, retirement benefit amounts and eligibility, amending the normal retirement date for certain members, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-22.
I'll second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open and on the floor for discussion. Wayne, same thing, but for fire, right? Okay. I should say Matt. Sorry.
Yeah.
Looking the wrong way. Council comments or questions? There being none, anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 3-0. Additional items, city attorney report.
No, sir.
Excellent report, thank you. City manager report. Excellent report. City council committee reports. First Step Shelter met yesterday. The level of use of First Step Shelter is also at an all-time high, and the shelter was requested by the county to be used as an emergency shelter during the storm for a number of individuals as well. So on top of being at capacity, they added roughly 30 people during the storm. They did a fabulous job with that. I appreciate their efforts with that. Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, we did not have a meeting with them this month, but I do want to say that Thursday is the chamber after hours. If you have time to pop by, I believe it is at the chamber. No, I don't even remember where it's at. Look it up on the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber.
Okay.
Sean, where's it at? Arrow.
Arrow.
You. Yes, sir. At the chamber building.
No.
Oh, out there. Okay, very good. Road trip Thursday night. Thank you very much. Any other business come before us this evening? There being none, have a good night.